So I thought I would start talking about my nap because I think it's a common experience.
Okay.
Or like, what was it? 4:30, 4:45. Mm-hmm. We're gonna go live with the show at 6:30. Yeah. Been working all day. Gonna get there. You know what though? It's just been such a beautiful snowy day. I think I'd like to just lie down and close my eyes, for half an hour. And like, I don't know, I think maybe I got an hour and 20, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And like falling into that sleep, again, snow outside, I can't see it, but I can feel the light. I can just feel it, and I turn my little white noise fan on and my legs are just like warm and everything just felt great. And then I woke up and it was like, what did you do, Jonathan?
Oh no.
What did you do? Do you not ever have that experience? You wake up from a nap and it's just like, I wish I had not done that. Because like my arms won't move. My heart feels like my soul's in my toes maybe or somewhere. Did you notice how I came in the kitchen and I ate chocolate? I like shamed myself for it too while I did it. And so like it was all kind of that. I'm glad I took the nap because as I age, no one believes me when I say it. As I age, I'm finding that it's important to conserve energy when you can. Yesterday, I was talking with Coach Tommy at Core Combat Rockford for a moment about some upcoming events. There's a couple things impact our family. Most exciting one will be the Blue Belt test that a number of us are going to go through. But I said this. I said, at this point in my life, I'm not trying to add more endurance. I'm trying to learn how to use the endurance I've still got. And he said, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyhow, for those of you out there that have ever had one of those hour-long naps that you kind of wish you hadn't, here's to you. Hallelujah to Jesus. He did the work your brain needed during that time. And though your Protestant work ethic leaves you feeling guilty and worthless because a little folding of the hands to rest and your poverty comes, yeah, right. But really, it's just part of this veil of tears. Sometimes a siesta is what it is. I thought about that last week quite a bit, like for like a solid 20 minutes, like siestas. Like half the world's like take a nap at noon for 2 hours. Like they all do it. Why don't we do it? Well, you make more money if you don't. Why do they all do it? Well, I don't know. Honestly, I'm sitting here on the other side if we don't do it. So, I'm willing to take a comment on that. I would imagine they all do it because the nights just go better. Something like that. But I don't know. And you're out there in Siesta Land, commenters this evening, we would love to hear from you since it's radio, not video here at Stop the White Noise. Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. That means you've been paid for. That makes you immortal now, and he's not going to be long anyway. As I said, Stop the White Noise with Jonathan and Meridith. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Meridith.
And glad to be back in radio as opposed to video. Slowly making this transition. There was a comment out there about whether or not, we could bring the video back. And I want to make sure that in all good faith and in all jovialness, my response is heard. It's like when you have the $100,000 per year, per annum, we got to do this for like 7 years straight, right? $100,000 per annum for me to bring on the full-time, project set manager, studio control guy. We'll bring video back, right? Till then, we're going to go old school radio. Meridith and I. Late night Fridays. Welcome to the show. So, yeah, your questions, Bible answers. Meridith and I in a little nonsense, talking Christian, family, Bible, and the rest. If you got questions for us, you can send it to madpxm.com/contact. And while you are there, make sure you subscribe to the Christian news filtering for Christians by Christians. You ain't going to find it anywhere else like that. Mad Christianity, madchristianmondays.com. So more from classic Jonathan advertising later. Yeah. What do you think of the snow day? Or what else have you?
Oh, it was a gift from Jesus.
Amen. Huh?
There were a few things on my plate that I was not looking forward to all week long. And Christ just said, that's all right. I got your back. Got you covered. stay home.
Yeah. Use this time.
You won't be able to go there anyway. So I was able to attack some projects that had been bothering me around the house, just cleaning out what we call our large pantry, which isn't really a pantry at all. It's just
the
a closet
in the kitchen. That
it's like a mudroom closet,
could have
but
been
it's in the kitchen.
The larger bathroom, but now it's a closet.
Or a laundry room.
Or a laundry room. It's a strange place.
Yeah.
I like the laundry room option still as a feature.
So
yeah.
the previous, I guess the builder of the home, his wife collected dishes. She had china and other types of, I don't know what it's called. There's a glassware from the 70s that's kind of exciting.
Yeah,
anyway,
I'm waiting for you to follow to it. That's why I looked at the comments like, okay, she'll get this in a moment, and we'll know what kind of glass. The lady collected jewelry too. I remember there was a lot of need for storage of certain types, and he loved her and built the house for her.
So he actually built this pantry, what we call the large pantry, so that she could put all of her dishware in there. And I remember the estate sale, all of the different sets were pulled out, and it was a sight to behold.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting concept, collecting things and what happens to it once you don't collect it anymore.
Right.
I like
how much of your children's lives do you want to be them getting rid of your
life,
right? Your things that you all think should be worth money, but much of it isn't either. I've watched it enough now just to be sad about it, and how many sets of dishes do you need? I totally get though wanting to pack rat like that's pretty. I want one. Like I get that. Or I don't know. I'm not really big on pack ratting dishes per se. But bags. I have a thing for trying new bags, and but then holding on too. That's where I don't know. It's the storage of it that starts to be the weight on the house and the person, right?
So building bigger barns
one. Yeah,
is
right,
kind
exactly.
it's a tough scenario, and we have a lot of we did have a lot of strange cupboardry just for specific things, and trying to repurpose it for our own use. It was like, wow, this cupboard the shelves don't even work for anything. What was in here? Oh, that was the Christmas ornament cupboard that had like specific Christmas decor in it that had to stand upright. And
did you found that out?
That was the one in the laundry room. Yeah, that we took out.
How interesting.
Yeah, and then the immense amounts of cupboards that were in the kitchen, that was, for dishes, and the way that the drawers pull out and stuff is for the dishes and stuff. And then the large pantry, and then the crawl space.
So I'm about like, as I find that I have the freedom and the requirement to fix things in my home, I'm all about like the answer that's universally valuable later. Like, I'm all about not having to do it again because someone needs different dishes, right? Like, and I've been thinking that about what's public, what's not. If when you replace a bit of an outlet in your home, and the wiring begins to break off, you can fix it. You can get it in there. You can make the extra tail or whatever, right? But like at a certain point, that wiring is not going to work anymore. Mm-hmm. Like the house won't just last forever. And when we put them behind the walls, I don't know. I'm one of these out of the box thinkers. So to me, sometimes something that's obvious to everyone just seems like really unobvious. I never really questioned it till I thought about trying to replace it. And then I was like, wait a minute. Like that's really cool if you're trying to hide it from everyone because you don't want anyone to know about it or that it'll need to be fixed. Because like you just aren't telling people when you're selling the houses in the 1950s that the wiring, I mean, we didn't know. They're just selling it. That's just it. They're just doing it and selling it. They don't know what it's going to turn into.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're in this place where, well, there's a lot of homes that are not going to be up to code.
Right.
And whatnot. So anyway,
yeah, it's a unique conundrum to build a home for oneself. And it's not something that our generation really has a lot of experience. I mean, some of us do, but not all of us do. We oftentimes inherit or move in.
That's what I'm getting at, though, is to build a home not for oneself, but for like the good of humanity. Mm-hmm. It seems like kind of, it's a lofty goal, I suppose, but like that whoever would come next would find value in the home.
Yeah, that seems to be more of a function versus fashion thing that we are very much so influenced by.
We went from a place where a lot of homes were built by the people who lived in them. And so older homes, farm homes, are often, unique. Mm-hmm. Whoever did it. And in Rockford, you can see there's houses around that you can be like, oh, well, they built that one probably. There's mm-hmm. just things that happen like that. And then you have this kind of Ford Motors industrialized home building approach that comes in post 50s, the suburb. Mm-hmm. And now you're building for the most kind of wide spectrum of the same people. Like they're all going to have to fit in the same kind of model. You got, they got four floor pans and all this, but the idea is you are trying to, at that point, create a universal block, like a commune kind of way of looking at things. But that life that they're preparing you for is a dual income, 2 kids, entertainment mm-hmm. room kind of life. And so it really wasn't built for anything other than to sell to people who were moving to the suburbs to become part of the American experiment, which, listener, be advised, the American experiment's kind of taken a left turn recently. And, what the 50s dream was may not be what the 50s dream in 2050 is going to be. So anyway.
So today I went through and cleaned our large pantry
That's
out.
right.
And pulled all of the things out and put it on the counter, touched every single bit of it, put it back. And, it felt really good now. It's, entropy is a fun boss.
Cleaning the corners, right? Like I was thinking that today as I did this room and I was like, I just feel like I have to get in every corner and
mm-hmm.
vacuum it out.
Yep.
It's the corners though. I didn't actually vacuum every corner, but it's like the bad memories hide there in the dust somehow. And when you get in there and scrub a little, there's a prayer that goes up and it just kind of all works itself out in the liver or something, I don't know.
In my case, it was more the sweet rabbit droppings.
Oh, goodness, yes.
He likes to sneak around.
He's really taken to his own druthers more and more recently. I want to give a hat tip to Jesse, who says, my grandparents lifted our farmhouse, dug out the old basement, and built a new basement under the house.
Wow.
And Nithrius says, my dad hated building prefab houses. Cafe Sole is asking, is anyone a pack rat? So if you pack rat something, you might talk about it. Maybe talk about how you can minimize it. Nithrius again says he's been pack ratting books. I have done that. I have this ongoing, what do I call it? Contraption of built goals. I don't know how. There's more than one project that exists in my life that overlap that enable me to continue to have books move out of my office and yet still remain within the orbital galaxy of my life. I'm building 2 libraries. So because I feel you, Nithrius. I've also realized though that too many books means I don't read the ones I want to. And a lot of times when I want to read more. So back to cleaning and minimizing.
Yeah.
And
well, that was what God gave to me today. It was the opportunity to just focus on something that every week when I go into the large pantry for our cleaning supplies, I think, oh, Jesus, I would really like to be able to get to this because it is not a fun room to be in. And
no, I wonder if just taking the shelves out wouldn't improve it, even though like the shelving does give you a lot of shelving. Okay, like that's really true, right? But maybe if you walked into that space and it wasn't all shelving like on you, you'd be like, oh, a shelf here and a shelf here would work, and then you would like have a very more calming shelf room than the current kind of like what else can we stockpile in here, bomb shelter.
The funny, not funny, it's not funny at all. It's a blessing. The blessed part of our family getting older is that they also get bigger. And so, when I moved in, I created organizational systems for their things that were for a certain size. And now they are a little bigger. They're like growing out of their spaces. And so I'm finding that that's kind of what I have to reconsider as they get older. And our house actually doesn't get bigger. It just kind of stays the same, but it starts to feel like it's shrinking. Like, really, when did this house get so small?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, because now the kids are big and they're only going to get bigger.
You called it funny and then you called it blessed. And I think, what's funny about it, what's weird or foolish about it is how you would think as 2 grown adults with 5 children, you would expect to have 5 more grown-sized bodies in your home, and you would know what that would be like. You would expect you would see it coming. And yet somehow,
no,
it just surprises you.
Absolutely not. Yeah. You're like, oh my goodness, you have your newborn baby, and you're like, I hope we have 20 of these. And you just think about like, they're going to just stay this tiny and this incredibly easy to tote around their whole life.
I tried commanding that. No one listened. Nobody obeyed me.
Alleluia is trying.
He's still pretty cute.
She's our teeny tiny. But you kind of forget that like, nope, they're not going to sleep in a half-size mini crib their whole life. No. And so if you're thinking like, oh yeah, I can fit 10 mini cribs in this room. This is great. Well, good, but you don't have 10 babies at one time usually. The
prefab houses conversation really does have an impact on those of us out there and those of you out there who believe in Psalm 127 and 128 that children are a heritage from Jesus, that is a blessing to fill your quiver with the babies Jesus gives you. Far from claiming that a woman must do nothing but make children her whole life, why would you ever reject the baby God gave you within a marriage? Seems a strange thing to do. One of the reasons people do it is they say stewardship usually, and what they mean is I need to afford what I want. And well, it is quite difficult to buy a home that is going to service 12 or 15 people. I mean, try to find a vehicle that's going to service 12 or 15 people in a family. The market is not helping anybody in this. And so, we have lived with something of an experiment. How do you do this? And how do you make it work in a home or in a series of homes? They've been different sizes as they grow. Mm-hmm. But, and it's been, we don't use bedrooms the way most people use bedrooms, and we use really big rooms the way most people would use it. Like it's not our TV room, right? Like, and we, what I've seen happen recently is that, as they grow older, they just, how do I say it? It's like they're like a coral reef or a bit of yeast in the lump or a little bit of fungus growing along the floor. Like they're just going to claim space, right? It's just going to kind of go.
Yeah.
And you can say that this room is the living room, but then there's this corner that just belongs to something. And, I kind of like it. I don't mind it. We always have to, like all things today, cleaning, you prune what grows, but the freedom that we've had to not be so stuck in expectations of what our house is going to be, so that we could live through what we believed in as the dream of being quiverful, of having the kids God gave us, and watching it still work out as it does, and it'll work out. I mean, if the youngest is 22 and they're all still living in that room, like that's gonna be tight, you know. But you know, right now it's fine. It's not really a problem, you know. And so, but that, what do you think?
It's been interesting to hear the different conversations because our oldest could feasibly get married at any point, like as far as statistically, you know,
at
she's
any
old
point
enough.
a year from now, she could be married,
right? But I mean,
like
she's legally an adult.
Yes,
and so
she's capable.
You know, she
of,
could just move out. She could have her own space if she wanted. She's thankful that she gets to be in her little twin bed in her spot.
Yeah.
And we have
a safe corner.
One of the bedrooms is a desk room that has a desk for each of the kids that they have chosen, that they get to decorate. The walls around their desk are free for them to use as they will. They do need to ask for permission to poke holes in the walls, just, you know, get the A-OK and make sure everything's safe and kosher. But she likes being in that scenario, knowing that it's not going to be forever.
Right.
And that she is at the tail end of it.
Yeah.
Whereas when she was 14, it was like, oh my goodness, can I make a paper chain? Because I am so ready to be done. And it's cool to see how God just changes our hearts. So I think there's a blessing and a gift that then comes when she leaves and cleaves. She'll see homes through this light of like, that is a place of solace for me, a sanctuary away from my sanctuary.
I think especially as one comes to be an adult right now, coming of age, it's got to be terribly scary. Whether you've woken up from 2020 or not, you're living in some sort of nightmare. Usually, you know, the world itself is practically on fire. And so for a young person to be able to grow into that mental understanding while being able to still stay in the same bed they were in, you know, 2 years before when they were still kind of a kid in their own head, for a year or 3 without this idea like, hey, feed yourself. Come on. You know, why feed yourself? Like that, like what is that? I was in a conversation this last week. That was a very good conversation with someone, but I was surprised when it's outside of our local community, but I was surprised when he, you know, kind of talked about, you know, and when you get the kids out of the house, you know, it really helps out a lot. And, you know, when someone says that to me, I'm always kind of like, you know, I'm not going to correct you who are talking to me. I'm not going to try to change your mind. Obviously we disagree. But I don't even want to be like, yeah, I get it. Like that. I don't even want to give you that because it's just so far from where I'm at on it. And it always kind of stuns me again. It's like, it's more like you don't even know the poverty of what you just said. You don't even understand how you're just giving up your kids.
Yeah.
For what? Can't wait to get them out of the house. I mean, I really do look forward to the day when we have more people who we're related to because they got married, and that means that none of them generally sleep here anymore.
Right.
Like they will sleep somewhere else, and then they will, because when that happens, they'll, you know, like gremlins, when they get wet, there's more of them, right? And so that will happen. But I expect them to be here sometimes and to be like, hi, you know, grandfather, whatever. And I mean, be often if they live nearby. And I would love to encourage my children to believe that we want that out of life, that what life is about is not, hey, go feed yourself and make sure you can feed yourself on a boat too, and then give me some. Like, it's instead, hey, can we eat together tonight?
Right.
You know? Yeah,
I love the idea of the family growing rather than shrinking, the home growing. It's like, it's not really a matter of, oh, well, when the kids are all gone, we'll get a smaller table. It's kind of like, oh, well, when the kids are all gone, we'll need to have a few folding tables because we're not going to all fit around this one. You know? Yeah, and I hope they do come back often and are just kind of here. That's what what would bless our hearts. It makes me think of Proverbs 14:4, where it says, "Where no oxen are, the trough is clean, but much increase comes by the strength of an ox."
That's a good one. Yeah.
So like, it's all fine and good to have that pristine magazine home, but then at the end of the day, do you have those, watching your back? Do you have that army you need to fight against the world or the evil of just life together? Going with you to homebound visits, it's a gift, and yet it's sorrowful sometimes because there wasn't a lot of thought put into, I guess you kind of see the thought of, I'm never going to die, I'm never going to get old, catching up with people who are in that silver-haired generation right now. Right. And they just don't have anybody there. And the ones that do remarkably better. Yeah. Yeah, right. It's night and day. If you have people who are visiting you and caring for you and loving on you as you age and face the hurts of each day that God keeps you here, it's just, life is more full and rich.
Yeah. Well, life is about people. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't say it as though life isn't about trees and cows and sunshine too, but we're there for sharing with the people and for the people to share with the cows and all this. But like, it isn't about how many things I can collect in boxes and pull out once in a great while to remind myself of what's not there anymore, actually, a lot of times, right? Yeah. So I was talking with you or the kids about nostalgia and trying to go back, and Dr. Kuntz from abriefhistoryofpower.com is we had a really great conversation this week, and he is he's always kind of like this, coldly Mr. Anti-nostalgia, but it's on principle, and it's really worked on me over time because I've not ever been a fan of nostalgia per se. However, I am moved by it. And I think we all are, and that's part of the issue, is that nostalgia by definition is a lie. It is an attempt to go backwards, which cannot be done. It's an attempt to cling to what is gone rather than accept and embrace what is being given. Right? And so nostalgia is ever something of a tragically false hope. That can really blind a person to what could be the great hope that's right in front of them. And so he kind of says it this way, which decade do you want to go back to? We're all trying to fix it, all trying to go back to some point, right? So you're all into the classics, right? So which era of classicism is the one that they almost got it right. We just went back there and did it that way. Now from here it'd be okay. Right? Which one is it? What do you need? And it's just the wrong question. Like for such a time as this, like we're already here. Where are you going to go back to? What are you going to save? And somehow in all of this, the urge to hoard is the same urge, whether you're hoarding books or pictures of your kids or what have you. Silver, gold, and ammo. I don't know. Hoarding is trying to hold on to yesterday. And yesterday cannot be held on to. Tomorrow really can't be held on to either. Today is what you have. And it is it's the day Jesus made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Oh, I didn't do any of my Psalms today.
Oh.
I can kind of feel it in my bones. I should probably do it before bed.
Isn't that weird when you notice you're like, whoop.
I kind of feel it. Those words, empty. Those words mean a lot to me. But Yeah, I wrote an article this week about AirPods. So that Mad Tank, you can find that at madpxm.com. Go gamma something.
Oh dear.
You're looking at the
For those of us who are Luddites, like madly writing down these instructions, go gamma.
It's the main thing on
something.
madpxm.com right now. So the Mad Tank articles come out on Thursdays. They become the main thing. And this time was my time to bat. And I...
that was the title then.
I just,
Okay.
I just had caught all this information about Apple AirPods as I had seen something that had made me a little nervous about how much EMF, radiation. It is radiation, but that word can be very abused. That they put off. And so anyway, that writing that article about them and kind of not still sure where I'm at on they're safe enough, it seems, for the moment, but do I really want to continue the usage habits I've had up to this point in my life for the next 30 years with the same tool? And the answer is kind of leaning toward no. So, but the question is, so then what about things like, I don't know, I rap psalms in the morning to music. How do I continue that habit, right? How do I feed that? So, or do I give it up entirely? So, and that's just part of it today was like, I don't want to put my AirPods on, but like the result is sometimes then I pray less. I don't like that right now, right? So, but it's, I used them as a crutch to create a discipline, and now I'm in the process of getting to figure out how is it worth it just to hold on to the crutch or not. And for the listener to know, the Apple AirPod emits the EMF, the amount of electrical frequency or radiation, but it's not like gamma radiation. Gamma radiation does stuff to you really fast. The thing would be that this would do stuff to you really slow. It would take a lot of this to really hurt you. And it might be so little that it couldn't hurt you because you're big and strong enough to live through it no matter what. So, waves are moving through us from space as we move through space all the time. There are different levels of radiation. That's why people get up on UV light and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, the EMF that's going on inside of around the AirPods is the equivalent to what is the standard minimum allowable outside of a microwave. Okay. So it has to be in the outside of a microwave, which immediately lets someone who doesn't know a lot make some jumps, actually, because there's two things going on with microwaves that make microwaves potentially dangerous. And my next article is going to be about microwaves because I've been looking into it to find all this stuff out. And it is fascinating, the history of microwaves, microwave ovens, I should say, because radio is a microwave, Bluetooth is a microwave, Wi-Fi is a microwave, TV and cable is a microwave. You better believe 5G is a microwave. Like, there's microwaves just all over the place right now. Can you use microwaves, or do microwaves hurt human beings? There hasn't been any real proof of that. Once you get into the X-ray place, that's where it becomes more. And then this is the thing about the microwave oven is that what it's doing to cook the food, those waves are staying inside the machine. The frequency you're picking up outside that you can relate to the AirPods, that's like the frequency you'd pick up next to a battery anywhere else. It's not the thing that they're trying to keep inside the machine. So it doesn't mean it's good for you. It just means it's a different kind of wave that you're dealing with that entire time. My favorite part of all of this, all the research, best story in the whole thing. So you know how you can see into your microwave oven? Do you ever wonder, like, how can I see into this thing and it's safe? Like, they built this big box around it and then there's glass here? Like, how's this work?
Actually, no, I didn't ever think about that.
I thought it many times. And then, when you start saying, maybe we should stand like a few feet away, I was like, yeah, I'll stop looking straight through this thing because I thought the question and I just assumed it was safe. And it kind of is, because there's like a mesh, there's a wire mesh that goes over the thing. And the microwaves that are inside the microwave, which are a directed microwave energy, not an electromagnetic frequency like the AirPods, they are big enough as waves as they move through space that when they bounce off of things, they can't get through the holes in that mesh. Wow. Usually. So the guy who's like professionally talking about this in the article I'm reading, he's like, but I still wouldn't stand next to it all the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. So anyway, looking forward to if I can put that all together and learn a few more things. But the result again is my prayer life is just having to kind of rethink itself a little bit. I mean, there's definitely a difference between your wired headphones and your wireless, but the 500 megahertz of EMF is what you're not a microwave cannot make more than that around it, and that's about what your Apple AirPods together, when they're both being used, pick up in their area around them, and that's right by your head. And so the question is, what's that doing to your head? Oh, one other really cool story out of this. Did you know there's like an ongoing, like, what do you call it, conspiracy about how Russia, Russia news today, but this is back in like the 80s and 90s. Russia has been using directed microwave energy weapons to like give American spies headaches in their ambassadorial spaces where they have to be in Russia for like 30 years, right? So like the spaces where Americans were like sending ambassadors in the 90s.
Yeah. Like
Russia as a government just kind of built things that happened to direct a lot of microwave energy at that building. And like everyone who works there comes down with these incredible headaches and things. It's called the Havana syndrome. Actually, it was in Cuba is where it was happening. It's called Havana syndrome. And there's still like a big fight about, is that what happened or what? Why do people who work in that building get these headaches? And anyhow, so I'm curious about all that because, I've used AirPods often and well, and I want to keep praying my Psalms with vigor.
Yeah.
So I have tried praying them without the music. I can do it. It's just not as, I love the music. I got used to like singing the song, right? But test the idol every time, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah. We do have one question I saw.
Did you always have a question that came by for reels? My wife always wants to get rid of the microwave oven and says, Jesse, let her. Hey, I can tell you about how they cook your food too. It's actually very ingenuitive. And these transistors of a sort that were used for radar in World War II that needed to be repurposed by the companies that made them, Raytheon. One of the guys who worked there was carrying a candy bar in his pocket with one of them, and they melted the candy bar, and he was like, well, that's interesting. And so he figured out how to repurpose, again, the microwave to direct it within that box so that it bounces around in that box and hits your food. So the microwaves are small enough that they go through your food, right? Like radiation does. It always does. It goes through you. This happens all the time. It's not just electromagnetic frequency, but there are other things that are moving through your body. The unseen world does exist. It's kind of cool. That said, the microwaves that are being directed through the food, if you were in there like a fly, you ever put a fly in a microwave? Like you won't live. The microwaves being directed at the food, what they do is they don't hit the food at all. Like they're too small as waves to hit the food. They go right through, but they hit the water in the food. So every molecule of water in the food starts to get warm. And then it begins to turn into steam. And as it steams from inside out, it heats the thing up. Which is why I think a lot of times the food will end up being a little drier when you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just keep thinking about bean burritos. Those frozen bean burritos and how like the outside was so hot and you burn your face off and then the inside was frozen.
You may have your hot pocket two ways, frozen cold or burning lava hot.
Exactly.
Yeah. And usually it's both in the middle. There's the hot bite that burns your tongue and there's the piece that's still frozen. And it's all because you tried to heat it up too fast. It should have done like 20% power over 7 minutes, right? But you wanted it to be microwave, so you want to do it fast in a minute.
Microwave on high.
Yeah, right.
And then the concept of like, oh, look at how cool that marshmallow looks if I microwave and it puffs up and then you pull it out and it's like rock.
Yeah.
How could a marshmallow get so
all
hard?
The water evaporated.
God.
All the water evaporated. It's ingenuitive and certainly, a great way to turn an old war resource into something that everybody began to buy. I'm not saying they're wrong to use. We haven't had one for years, and we found that like the 3 things we thought we needed it for taste better when you just warm them up on the stove and don't take that much longer, really. Like if you need to warm up your lukewarm coffee, It's tougher
Boil
to, well, I'm saying that was tougher. It just, the flavor does end up pretty bad.
Oh.
That said, the microwave version isn't very good. Okay. Everyone knows that too. So like, you're dealing with warmed up leftover coffee. It's not going to be the fresh coffee you just poured, it's not going to be that. So like the number of things that you would use it for are very, very few. And I don't know. I don't think they're even that efficient, honestly. Trying to get back to this question mark that you had mentioned. It's Frisbee. I don't know if it's a question for us or not. She says, perhaps the difference is measured in how easily you can let something go. So I think that was kind of inner.
So go up a little further.
Inner question.
There you go.
Would you distinguish between having clutter and hoarding? Can I call clutter hoarding you haven't come to terms with yet? I have clutter all over my space, and it's a constant battle against the new information that comes with potential to do good, but has to turn into a bit of a whirlwind with the current information because you can't do all things at the same time. And so it turns into a cloud that eventually has to be put back into order. So yeah, the line between clutter and neat, don't hear me wrong. But if the clutter how long has the clutter been there, right? At a certain point, why do you still have it? You're hoarding, right? And I don't mean to like condemn everybody, but I think we should all see the tendency in ourselves to keep stuff we don't need. Like, it's really stupid. We do it. We all keep stuff we don't need. And it's idolatry. We kind of are worshiping it in a really weird way. Like, I know you're a Christian. I'm not claiming that you're a sinner and you're going to go to hell and you'll believe in Jesus. I'm saying your flesh gets spiritual power from crap. And it doesn't work out. It backfires. And you can find it lying in piles everywhere. Often on walls. We like to hang up the stuff that we worship the most. And again, so, what my tactic in all of this is put some word of God with everything. Put it everywhere. Put on it. Don't take away the picture. Put word of God in the picture. And, the redemption of Christ is what we're after here. He brought us back to live here.
This brings me to some interesting thoughts as I have noticed over the years, like this kind of push-pull inside of you to be very stark and minimalist, and then all slowly it all does just kind of
creeps on me,
creeps back to where it was before.
Yep.
And
whirling dervish.
And I remember it kind of being a family trait in a sense. Like, there's a certain amount of comfort that some brains, it would seem, find from having items around them. It's like, if I have, it makes me think of like a little seagull collecting pretty pebbles for its nest. If I have these pretty pebbles, then I feel like I can do what I need to do at my nest more efficiently or thoroughly.
We all do it by nature, everybody. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a spectrum where some people are going to manifest in different ways.
And
but
so,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking as I watched you just when we were early in our marriage, and then towards the middle of our time being married, it was like, yep, he just likes decor. And then we had our fifth child. And I love how God puts thoughts into words through other people, especially your children. So our youngest has her own desk in the desk room, and I try to be very hands off with their space. Like, as long as they stay basically in their square, anything goes. And then once it creeps over their square, then they start getting talked to. Right. But she said, "Oh, look at my desk. It makes me feel so productive." And I look, and there's like little hamster, we call them hovels, but they're like little hamster nests here, and there's some stamps there, and then there's sketches of things over here and a paper doll
Her
that
desk
she's
is the
creating
most
over there. And
amazing little mud pile in the world.
we
It is-
decided to call it Antique or Alleluia's Antique Shop.
It's just incredible. I want to come back and talk about the hovels, so put a note in your head on that. But yeah.
And so her saying that, it was like, oh, Jonathan's brain's totally the opposite of mine. He gets creativity and inspiration from his things. I, on the other hand, get overwhelmed. And so I walk into the kitchen and I can't make supper until it's clean. And then I can make supper because otherwise I won't be able to follow the recipe without distraction. So I'm constantly making supper and washing dishes at the same time. And for you, it's like, oh, there is a counter full of dishes. Well, then it's time to make more, bring it on.
It's more like I'm hungry. So that means that this little tiny space over here that I would never use now is my counter, and I will use this. And then, yeah.
Feel very productive.
I, as I think back to my childhood, I'm not sure why, I was a pretty clean kid. Like my room was picked up often. I think I probably had messes too, but I remember keeping the floor. I mean, it had a wood floor, and it was clean. I jumped on it. I bounced balls on it, get in trouble, play a card. I tried to use it. Ended up sitting on my bed playing video games a lot, and then going outside. But it was. I know I moved my furniture around. I like reconstructed so that would make sense. I still do that. I want to move stuff around and put it differently and everything. And that cleaning process of what is mine and what do I want to get rid of now. That's very therapeutic, very, very freeing kind of thing. Yeah, but I don't remember having much of a mess to the level where now in adulthood, the last 3 years or so, because there is the mess that creeps. There's always the mess that creeps.
Yeah.
And so I've been on sort of a quest to create spaces where I let the mess get out of control. So when I was using the other room with the fireplace for the studio in 2020, and I had, I don't know if it was that desk. No, I still had that big thing. Maybe it was just that one, but it was open. It was. And I let 6x4 cards get out of control on that desk for like 4 months. I let it pile and turn. It all started with, because I'd been working on trying to like lay out the cards in the grid to see if there'd be interaction between, the board as I look down on it on a random event, right? So I'm working on different projects. How do these projects interact with each other? Anyway, so I have a hourglass like that one over there.
Yeah.
That falls over and breaks and spills that black sand like all over the middle of it. And at that moment, I was just like, well, okay, I can clean this right now, or I can decide to give in. Because at the moment, I knew I was in a battle against my own like frustration with chaos somehow. Like that's what I was dealing with. So I gave in and I just let the pile get worse, and I didn't clean it up. I put stuff on top of it. I let paper pile up on top of it. I put like rocks and other things there, and I left this pile in the corner of my room that like the me that I know, like can't take that pile. Like that pile needs to get fixed fast. And I forced it to be there. Yeah, isn't it interesting? And so like it's like I'm battling with, a diverse set of needs or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But since then, again, I keep finding that. So like the board for the storyboard work up here, like that's intentionally a place I let get messy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I try to keep other places more, this looks messy, but there's 3 and 1, right? And that's all that's going to be there. And if there's more, it gets cleaned back into that. So, that tension between what the mind needs to do the work, and the thing is that Alleluia does know, that that we all kind of experience, is that some of the best work comes accidentally out of the fixing or the cleaning or the putting back from the decay that comes from the scattering that the second law of thermodynamics puts into the scenario. Inevitably, when you clean, you create at the same time. And so, yeah. But you definitely have had, like, I've always loved this about you. I'm like, when I was marrying you, I was like, oh, I got a good one. She's gonna put everything in boxes. She's gonna have labels on it.
Yeah. I did that today. I actually put buttons in a little tin that smells like black tea. That's like vanilla black tea. And I was like, oh, I can't just leave this. That's gonna drive me crazy. So I had to label it buttons because you can't see through.
No. Your organization needs are definitely higher than mine. And then we just kind of started by talking about how the kids have generally leaned into yours more, but because I also I cannot put up with the dirty happens. I make the dirty while I'm making things. And then I don't always clean it up because I'm making like 17 things at once. Yeah. And so I'm moving around between them. But eventually I got to clean this up or I go crazy. When we go to my mom's studio and her workshop like that, it never gets clean. It never gets.
It's like a seasonal thing that she will create on top, like you did with your desk. I'm seeing a lot of the similarities.
Yeah.
She's very good at creating a system, but then it's following through with the system that doesn't always happen until that one day where it's like, I couldn't find my screwdriver. I cleaned the studio, and now it looks really immaculate. And then it just kind of starts over again.
It is like the system isn't a system. And why is that? That's really interesting. Like when you've built something to work a certain way and you get to that moment, you're like, no, not today. And then like you do that often and your system's not a system, right? It's an option. But also some of it's like you're trying to find the system that doesn't clutter, I guess.
Well, what has come, my system, honestly, I didn't always label. It happened after baby number 5 was born. And God put us in a parish with a wonderful Titus 2 woman over us as far as over me.
Right.
The head pastor had this great wife as far as her ability to see people's needs, be the pastor's wife, organize anything, and let it be in a system that other people could then use. And I learned from her how vital that was in my home.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I have a husband who doesn't follow through with the system and will change it. And so where is my screwdriver? Well, here's the box labeled screwdrivers. Then I can say, I can help you in a time of, maybe whirlwind or whatever it is. Just be that person. But then as the kids get older, it's like, hey, I need a rag. Okay, in the large pantry, there's a bin labeled rags, and like everybody knows. And I moved it today, and you were like, hey, where are the rags? But everything, if you have a lot of people using a space, and then we learned this over at Hebron, like you have to label everything to a certain extent. I've taught our students, like our long-term stay guests, anything you put in the refrigerator, label it and put the date on it.
That's right. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to have gross food and you won't know when it was put in there. It just helps to keep things moving forward. You're not going to talk to all of your housemates about, hey, I'm putting the meatloaf away. And they're going to be like, what is this thing in the refrigerator? And whoa, look, it's meatloaf and it was made on this day. It just cuts down on the confusion when you're sharing a space with other people. So that's kind of, as a homemaker, why I've focused so much on that kind of labeling system. I want the home, I want the basement or my storage spaces to be able to function when I'm not there.
Yeah. Labeling was one of the major points that I took out of getting things done initially and tried to really put it into practice. found it difficult to do with information management and file folders because of reasons that I'd be happy to share with you if you want to get into smart stuff and that endless thing.
I loved what I gleaned, though, from your learning about file folders and how to label.
Yeah.
And I've utilized it in my filing system, and it's been a lifesaver for us as we've looked for this document or that document.
my rejection of file systems is more a matter of principled rejection of the lasting of most things. Like, I don't know. I don't, how do I say this? I don't know how to say it. How often does that happen? Paper is such a gift from Jesus. And what the 8x11 and the capacity to keep and store it provides is something that is a blessing beyond imagination, really. That said, we live in a time of bureaucracy. Bureaucracy means rule by desk. Paperwork. The 8.5x11 in the file folder is a big part of the way that a lot of this life just keeps you busy and out of what you would maybe better be doing. And so I have, once I kind of, as I began, like my fathers before me, imitating a professor, like, any article that comes across your, you find an article that's a good article. Okay, you clip it. You tag it in a system and you put it in a file folder and look, there's this really cool resource for keeping track of all of it. Yeah. Okay. Then the internet showed up. Okay. And you start trying to catalog all the good stuff you come across on file folders, right? You're going to need cabinets and cabinets and cabinets of file folders. And you have, anyway, so on and on, about the frustration with them. The challenge for me is always, been having enough stuff to make it worthwhile too. So like the number of things I need on a file folder, and I know how many I have, they're like right over there. It's like 15 pages of things. And so you don't need a file folder for that. And that becomes very annoying. But then as that's like my personal load, right? But then what you've done, which has been such a gift, is you've managed the required bureaucracy paperwork pile that the world that is insurance companies and banks and everything else demands that every household retain
or not for profit
for their records. Yeah, not for profit. Yeah, no doubt.
Save all your papers if you're ever going to open a not for profit.
So yeah.
And it blesses me. I like doing it. So God be praised for that. I love doing housework. I love homemaking.
Like when I go to the doctor's office and I see their files. Mm-hmm. And they're all color coded and everything. I'm like, okay, they're doing something right, but I hate that thing. I don't go near that thing. That thing scares me. Right? And I know you can find your way in. It's like the card catalogs. I don't know. At a certain point, you just...
I used to love to flip through the card catalogs.
Maybe it's something about being overwhelmed by too much information.
Yeah, I definitely think it's something about different people's minds. Like that's what I was trying to get at with the clutter versus hoarding. And bringing up our daughter, like for her, it's inspiration. For another person, it's clutter. For another person, it might look like hoarding. I mean, how many library crafts do you need?
Oh, goodness. But then again, back to what I want to see with that desk, her desk. You mentioned library crafts, right? Because she's always coming home with a million of those things. And then we talk about propaganda. I'm curious to see if that desk does get a little more planned.
Yeah.
In the next 4 or 5 years, watching our son, who's the one above her, shift the last 2 years.
Yes.
His desk took a massive shift into what he wants out of it.
And it took him actually like sawing his desk into bits and screwing it back together and then completely scrapping the whole thing and getting a different desk.
Among other things. But like at the end result of it though is he's become very orderly, again with his. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to see what she gets, but I love the freedom of her just to like walk into that space and not be bothered by the mess. I think there's something of a power in that the fact that my mind can't work without certain, I don't know, environmental niceties. It's kind of a crutch, you know?
Yeah. Well, like she has all the makings for a mother, a mother of many.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a gift and a blessing. And I pray that is in her future, because she has not only the ability to love all these little crafty things, you know, that homeschool preschoolers do, but she, you know, and she'll get a kick out of it. And she loves to do that with younger kids. You know, she's watching other people's kids at church, and she's just this wealth of, oh, I know a game, let's play this, or oh, let's do this. And she just has all the ideas. So we joke about how she's going to be the science teacher. We'll just have all the grandkids go to Aunt Alleluia's house for science day. And she'll
animals,
pull out these elaborate experiments as if it's nothing. And, you know, you might have to step around a rabbit cage, or, you know,
you might get peed on, or even a rabbit may attempt to make you his own as she comes by.
But she will do it with a joy and a grace. Her ability to work in a distracted environment, is that because she's a number 5?
Possibly. I mean,
she can focus.
Life is complex. So
in distraction, and that's something that our number 1 has trouble doing. Like she is more of a, okay, let me put my headphones on, let me go into my zone. Our number 2 actually looked a lot like number 5 when she was younger. She's now becoming more organized, but then she does have those spur of the moment, like, I'm painting this, you know, and it's all over. The paint is here and there and everywhere, and then this masterpiece comes out of her time.
So that's where, again, the mess must come for creation to occur. And then, you know, so if you need to create, you need the space to create in it. And that ebb and flow, different people are going to have different levels of it. I think, you know, to go back to that initial question, you really want me to define hoarding? I mean, when you can't have people over because it embarrasses you, then you definitely have stepped over that line.
It's a sign that something has been very scary. And you're trying to create a safety.
You're trying to hold on to the past. Trying to hold on to the past.
And the blessing in this is that it's a visual, and so you can see, hey, you know what? I'm misplacing my worship right now. And Christ is wanting that repentant spirit and heart, and ready and willing to take the place of all the things, because moth and rust will destroy, and it is coming. And so but Christ is not going to leave you nor forsake you. He's forever.
Frisbee, who is a lot of the genius behind Mad Christian Mondays, madpxm.com, and the Mad Tank, says, I once heard, so I can't get it on the screen, that's the part that always makes me nervous. I once heard a decluttering expert say that hoarding was always a response to trauma, not being able to get past a moment or keeping something just in case of an uncertain future. Yeah, so it's planning for an uncertain future. Yeah.
And we can see that in generations who grew up in war, or people who come into wealth after poverty.
Isn't it just a catch-22 though? Because the alternative is to not plan at all, right? If you're going, you know, if the generation that went through war decides we need to plan for the future because of the trauma that we've had, and the next generation says, you know, to heck with that, we're not planning for the future. We saw there were no problems. We had peace. Well, then war returns, right? So it's a tension, and to see that different people are going to have different relationships within that tension. You know, what are you able to put up with? But at the end of the day, you know, humans are not here to live in messes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are here to give design and order to things. And when the pain is such that you can't, I'll say it this way, because I found this very helpful, and this one hits a little close to home for me. But you know, a disorder in any type of psychological language, and you know, I think you got to take all that with a grain of salt. But a disorder, as opposed to say, you know, a complex or some other form of psychosocial thing, right? You're depressed. I've been diagnosed with depression. Okay, well, that's not a disorder. Okay? A disorder is something that impacts daily or near day-to-day life in such a way that other people now can't have normal lives because of that. And so again, at what point is your keeping of things just in case, or because you can't forget, impacting not just your life but everyone else's life around you?
Mm-hmm. Right?
And yeah, if that means you shut the door and no one's let in, I mean that counts too. In every case, as you pointed out, Meridith, it is idolatry too. We're worshiping the present. We are discontent with the possibility that it's all going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
We certainly then, you know, don't believe it's going to get better, which is the saddest part, that the gospel of Jesus Christ is that it's going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And that means today, and that means tomorrow, and that means next week. And if next week it gets worse, it's going to get better. It will. So whatever the mess is going to resolve and be cleaned. And that not only is a promise from God, but it's also what you're here to do with your own like house and your space and your body and your neighborhood, right? To be part of that, to put on the white hat, you know, go out and be the good guy. And that means then, yeah, you got to take care of your space enough that you're not so distracted with your space that you're always being stressed about your space. So that's all you care about, your space. Like, that's not going to help anybody. Yeah. But I just kind of think where we are, because the fear level that is so high in America right now, the stories are traumatizing. You know, what could come next is something people are preparing for in different ways. I watched a little video this week. Do I have that nearby me? Yeah, I do. That I thought was pretty reasonable. Sort of like, okay, 2024, what to think about. And one of the things that the guy recommended was that, you know, because it doesn't matter if there's chaos related to the election or not, it's always a good idea to have a basic emergency supply kit. Like, it's just always a good idea. That's the reason that's called a basic emergency supply kit. It's not a Civil War emergency supply kit or economic collapse. It's just a basic emergency supply kit, because things happen.
Yeah.
Weather
can come through, and then our toilets can't flush.
Happens.
It's good to have a little water.
And would you believe it? FEMA.gov has a very simplified one. And I'll just read it here. You know, water and non-perishable food for several days. You know, the idea is 3 days. Right? We're thinking like tornado goes through, knocks out power, or you know, that kind of thing. You know, we're not thinking two. You got 3 days. You got 10 days. Those are different markers.
Yeah.
But your basic is going to be 3 days. 3 days of water and non-perishable food. By the way, rice, beans, canned sardines. That's all you need. Not all you need, but it's a lot of it. Extra cell phone battery charger if you're going to rely on that kind of thing. I thought this one was useful. Battery powered or hand crank radio for receiving weather alerts. Flashlight, batteries, first aid kit, a whistle to signal for help, dust masks for contaminated air, and sheeting with duct tape for sheltering in place. So this is like your windows get blown out.
Okay.
Right. Moist towelettes, garbage bags, plastic ties for personal sanitation. Go in a garbage bag. Now there you go.
Yeah.
That makes a ton of sense. Non-sparking wrench or pliers for turning off utilities. So it's like there's a short somewhere and you got to turn it off, and it's hot and you got to turn it off. So you need something to grab it with. Can opener if your food is in cans. Local maps.
And if you come to Hebron, you can have one of the Army grade Can openers.
And you mentioned Hebron earlier, so might as well say it again, HebronCollegium.org. It is a gap year Bible school for men and spiritual retreat center for biological males, Christian, Trinitarian, here in Rockford, Illinois. And lots of cool stuff on the horizon with what's going on with the retreat center. Word is getting around, making contacts with people. Every pastor that I talk to about it gets excited about it. People are talking about, again, visiting. I talked with one guy today about elder retreats. He was like, that sounds like a great thing. I could really use that. So again, it's a facility that is here as a gift to the church to help men repurpose themselves in Scripture however much time they need. A day, 3, 7, a quarter, a year. If you're at a certain age, maybe the year's not going to be what's up for you. But in that age, the weekend might really be what you need. It's a place to get away from the noise, find the solace of Scripture alone, and yet around that Scripture support and other things. Just the quiet. Some good food, food that is real and has taste, and you can cook. And it's not that hard to cook it either, really. And maybe getting on a jiu-jitsu mat. I mean, that doesn't hurt anybody except for when it does, but it's good for you. So, HebronCollegium.org. Again, getting the word out. So some context coming through. I think the future is inevitable with the Collegium. I think it is going to work. And that's where, if you're out there and you've listened to us long enough and you know what the Collegium is, and you have a congregation that is looking for a mission to support as a bona fide nonprofit, Dark Shore is looking for your support. We manage this Collegium at a very, very minimal cost. It's $10 a day for those who stay. That is their only cost. All their food is included. Everything else is included. And so we rely on donor gifts to make that happen. And at this point then, if you or your congregation would like to be an official partner with this step toward helping young men get a leg up before they have to go out and fight the wolves, let us know. Reach out, HebronCollegium.org. Become a supporting sister congregation as soon as you can. And that pitch is going out now, again, more and more. And again, I don't think it's not a question of whether or not you out there or someone else is going to support it. The question is, are you going to get on board while you still get a chance to come visit before the thing's filled up? That's
absolutely. The kids and I were talking about it today, and we're like at a point where we kind of need a separate tearaway calendar just so that we can see who's coming when, in a way that the family can be like, oh, okay, this person's coming here, and oh, that's exciting, because we get excited every time somebody's coming. It's like, oh, yay. But another way for people, specifically the women, I'm assuming, now I'm sure there are some men out there who quilt, but typically it's women who like to make quilts. We're also looking for help outfitting the beds for the Collegium.
Mm-hmm,
we have 12 beds, and the idea is long-term guys who come to stay for a month, 2 months, a year, 6 months, whatever it is that's longer than just a weekend or a week, will get to take their quilt home with them. And we would love to be able to kind of connect you with that person that you provided a quilt for, at least, so that they could know, oh, these ladies at this quilting group in this state made my quilt that now has so many positive memories, because I went to the Hebron, and I haven't met a single guy who's come away from Hebron not changed.
No one leaves unchanged. No one leaves unchanged. In the last 2 weeks, I've been in contact with our first 3 guys, all of whom had, can we call it, unorthodox experiences. Their
experience they were not ready for.
We weren't ready. None of it was ready. So and that was just it. We're going to build it while we fly it, and we did. And most of them were not the target.
Right.
They were there. We had 1 target guy and 3 guys who were not the target, and it was like,
hey,
we'll see how this works. That's right. You want to be a guinea pig?
Come be a guiney pig.
That's right. And
$10 a day.
And you know what? We all learned in the fire a bit, and it was from Jesus the whole way. And again, I spoke with 3 of those guys in the last 2 weeks, and they're all in places that are kind of cool,
Yeah, absolutely.
And none of them are in those places disconnected from Hebron. Rather, the things that happen at Hebron have retained, like the trajectory has been set. They came looking for a trajectory, and they really are finding what they set out to find.
Right.
Even, like I say, one of the guys, he left here to go do something and like almost immediately decided, I don't want to do this. Yeah, but he knew what he wanted to do next, and now it's a matter of figuring out where that's going to be. But it's very clear. And I'll just say it. Like, the whole thing was ministry or not. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, then go do this other thing that's not ministry. And he's like, ministry. I'm coming back to ministry. So like that's it. You needed that moment and that shove. And everybody who comes through, even for a week, what I find, or a weekend, a day, you come through, and then how many times has it been? Like, there's like someone, the place was empty for like 3 weeks, and then someone comes through for a week, and someone comes through for 2 days, and then they skew off each other and end up like in this really valuable benefit that goes off and continues after they leave, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the locals here who are invested in Hebron as an idea, who will invite you over for dinner, or you'll see them at the potlucks, or all this kind of stuff. And that also becomes part of it, because the spiritual exchange, the energy that takes place there is palpable, and I'm not saying that means the Holy Spirit's present. You can get palpable energy anywhere, but it's cool to have coincidental, awesome connections just happen because you stayed somewhere for a few days.
Right.
Found a wife.
Exactly. Yeah. Crazy.
I don't know how we call that in the first year.
Ladies and quilters out there, anybody who has that talent and desire to share it with us, we would love to have your support in this area. It's like we have 12 beds, but like we said, we have kind of this revolving door. And so there isn't really a limit to how many quilts we need and will need over the years to come.
Right.
So I guess contacts through
madpxm.com/contact still right now is a way to do that. If you'd like to get your ladies guild or yourself onto the quilt colors, you'll get a really nice little letter from Meridith with some hand cut out cardboard colors.
Okay, I went to Ace Hardware where they sell the Magnolia line of paint, and I picked up every single swatch so that then I could bring it home and have them spread out all over the floor in the living room. And Jonathan,
you want to talk about? I walked in, and how stressed did I become instantly?
Oh, so stressed.
I was like, "What is this?"
I said, "These are the colors you get to pick from for the quilts."
And I was like, all I saw was pastels. I was like, "There's nothing but pastels."
He hated it.
Yeah.
But I showed him the grays. I had coordinated it so they were in little patches.
Had to look.
You just had to take a deep breath.
I found it.
And so they were hand-picked by Rev Fisk himself.
All 6 bold colors.
With some grays and white.
It's a nice mix. It'll look really good.
They'll look stunning. And very masculine.
Very cabin-y. Yeah. Yeah.
We do have two people who are requesting some support and I guess a little bit of advice.
Oh yeah, let's come to that. You're talking about questions, which you can send through madpxm.com/contact. I want to say, before we get too far off of the topic, I can't move that without making it do that. Jesse says, again, I know people who went through the Great Depression that saved everything, especially tinfoil and butter containers. My grandmother saved tinfoil. And I know this because my mother once told me I will never save tinfoil. And so I'm like 7. I'm like, okay then. Right. Like, so, but like, yeah, you're very firm about this decision to not save tinfoil. But like her memory of it was like getting in trouble for not saving tinfoil, probably, right? Like, cause it was so severe.
Well, and you had to,
even worse. So like, so Jesse, thank you. Yeah, it's the truth. And there's some wisdom in that, and there's some folly in that, right? So saving things that there's a great supply of, is not going to help you. And when there wasn't a big supply of tinfoil, it wasn't easy to get, but now there is. Washing, saving it, hanging on to that old behavior doesn't help you now. There's other things that you would want to give that same attention to. And that's the thing, is finding what's the thing that really needs your attention today. As a proverb comes to mind is, do your outside work first, then attend your inside work. What's the thing that's going to feed you?
Yeah.
Go do the thing that's going to feed you. And then there was one other, Hovels. Hamster Hovels. I just want to share because I think it is pretty amazing. So I had this little hamster named Ketone who lived for 2 weeks and then threw herself to the depths of our.
Oh, she was so ready to die. We picked her out at the pet store, and the plan was to get her for the whole family. But then there was another one too, right?
I don't remember.
Anyway, she comes home with us, and we maybe drove for a minute and a half. And my son's like, oh no! The hamster had jumped out of the little box and run under the driver's seat and then was like stuck under the seat. The kids got home and dismantled the car to get her out. Anyhow.
Yeah, it was Ketone.
That was day one.
Ketone was a special little hamster. And anyway, so before, it was right when we got Ketone. She was sort of a gift. She was sort of wasn't. You're like, there's a whole family thing. There's too many hamsters in our house. It's time for me to take charge. I'll own this one. And then I went and I'm like, so I'm gonna order the coolest hamster stuff there ever was. Like my kids are like, they went on Amazon. They ordered like some hamster things. I'm like, they spent $7. I'm gonna spend $25.
Hamster mansion.
That's right. I did. That's right. And I got all this stuff. And I mainly wanted like the little platform with like a little bridge that would come up to it, but it came in a package. And so one of the things in the package was this little blanket. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. And so I kind of set it aside, mess with the other stuff, get her cage set up, whatever. And it's blankets. And it's got like, it's a soft blanket. Sherpa. But like, and it's got like this really feminine coloring kind of thing. So it's like sitting there in my desk and it was like rainbows. Or maybe it wasn't rainbows.
It was stars.
Stars.
In rainbow colors.
It was cute, but it was like very not, it's what a 6-year-old girl might have in a room, right? And so, but
not
then
a Rambo
I decided, all my kids are carrying these hamsters around like in their hoods, on their shoulders, all this stuff. And it's cool. But I kind of like, well, what if I just put her in, I'll fold this thing over, I'll put her inside it, and we'll just see what happens. And what do you know? She has never come out of it. She'd stay there. So I could put her anywhere. I could put her on a shelf or whatever, and she'd stay in her little tiny blanket. And, and you could make a little, tent out of it so you could see in and look at her sleeping and all this. So, I show my family this, and they're like, oh, where'd you get that? They're all excited. And, next thing you know, they're making some, which was really cool. And so if you got a hamster, a little Sherpa blanket, they're going to love it. It's really great. And they can pee on it and poop on it. And you can throw it away in, 2 months and get another one because it's not tinfoil, right? You don't have to save it. So my kids then, who never let anything just kind of be good enough and have taken up knitting and purling.
Knitting and purling.
In the last, it is funny. Like I finished my meal and I look over, like there's 3 knitters at the end of the table. They're all it's like, when did I go back in time? But they've come up with a way to knit a little, you call it a hovel. I'd call it, it's like a hacky sack that's twice as big and then not finished. So there's a hole in it.
Yeah. It's all my hacky sacks start out and then it's like, oh no, it's a hamster hovel.
Hamster hovel. And the hamsters just go in these things and just live in there and they'll just sit there and they're so cute. And that's the story. That's really a bad payoff for everybody. Let's turn it to the, they're really cute. We'll sell you one.
They're amazing. Well, the funny part about it is that, so our son is like, these are incredible. I need to raise these. And so he goes out and invests money in a stud, which means just a boy hamster.
But you could tell.
His name is Nibbles because he just nibbles on everything and he's not mean about it. He's just like super curious and boy, like you can see the difference
boy
between
hamster
boys
is
and girls.
Far more like on forward than girl hamsters, more on sit here.
And but anyhow, Nibbles doesn't really understand what his job is. Well, so we have no hamsters.
No, we don't.
Yet.
Although we could get over to, I mean, we're trying to get to the questions, but like the greatest game there ever was, that's being advertised in our home as, a hamster battle to the death of backgammon. I'm not sure how that works, but I did see 2 hamsters in a box the other day that didn't quite get where they were supposed to get. But I learned a lot about human interactions from watching those hamsters. And that was something. The look in her eye, and I'm not saying like this is nothing about us in the marriage. I'm talking about like, you know, the guy-girl interaction that I watch happen with the youngs all the time.
College, let's just say college campus. Here we go.
And the look in her eye after she had said, "Come here, sir," and then he had.
Her tail was totally raised.
And then she turns around and the "how dare you" that she gave him. And I was like, oh.
But then there was squeaking and there was biting and there was scratching.
It's different. It's not the tiger. They're not the tiger, but it's like the tiger, you know.
Oh, man.
And all that. Man, I saw a tigerfish today, too. That's a scary fish. Just said the word tiger made me think of that. Scary fish.
Those have gills that are kind of like ruffly. Is that right?
They're
and they're
really big, and their teeth are like the front teeth are like, there's like 12 on each top and bottom, and they're like
kind of like a piranha.
Yeah, but big head, big old thing.
Huh.
Gross. Yeah, that's scary big.
Incredible. So we had a write-in from a longtime listener. So her name is Bella, or Belle, not Bella, Belle. Belle. And she is now 28 years old, and she said she's been listening to you since she was a teenager.
That's incredible.
And now she listens she listens to us, the Stop the White Noise podcast, as she does her housework.
Nice.
So it's kind of fun to see how you've like been in her life all those years.
It's kind of amazing, right? I mean, I've changed just a ton, right? And so have you. And here
I wasn't there for like all of it.
I was saying, you for sure. But I'm talking like Belle. Like, think about where she was when she starts watching this weird guy on the TV with like all this flying images and what, and like some classroom because the confirmation teachers, you know, well, look at this guy.
Yeah.
Right. And then all this time later to go through Raw with me. Wow. You know, KFUO, all that. That's a long time.
So now she's married and has five babies.
Oh, hallelujah.
Her fifth was born last summer, and she homeschools. So that means that she's been homeschooling for about 3 years, because once her oldest reached the age, that's when she started. She lives in a rural Midwestern town with a small LCMS congregation, and she has her family close by. They have a great relationship. So really life is going very well for her. Yeah. It's like that peaceful and quiet life that you would pray for. In Luther's prayer. Let me specify. But she has a few struggles. She has, her 5 children who are all very young, and the amount that she's needed and how irreplaceable she is in the family is starting to weigh heavy on her. She says she feels kind of like she's on demand both night and day to do for so many people. And then she has so many responsibilities to attend to that it's becoming like her blessing is becoming a burden. And she's just left rather weary from it all. She's struggling to stay positive when all she can see right now is a future of this. And so she's just asking for wisdom and encouragement, basically, for Christian parents who are in the similar space that she is, where you're in that the fruit of the womb kind of phase of life, and you're recognizing that, we are in a fallen world, and wow.
Yeah, having the kids didn't make it perfect. And she will be saved through childbearing, 1 Timothy 2, if she continues in faith, hope, and charity with self-control, something like that. The idea there is not that the work of your childbearing atones for your sins before an angry God. Jesus did that on the cross. The idea is that having been saved by Jesus on the cross, your vocation is simply childbearing, and there's enough cross for you in childbearing without your men expecting much more from you than that. It's kind of what it comes down to, faith, hope, and charity with self-control. Like you should have self-control. You should be a believer, right? But like, there's, the workload of taking care of the fruit of your womb. When you have consummated with a man, owning what that will mean, is the curse. It is a cross. Mm. It's a cross that's redeemed. It's a cross that was not built as a cross, but as a tree that became a cross, which now in Christ is a tree of life again. And so, it's like we were talking about a little bit earlier, watching the fact that you're going to die catch up on people who weren't in any way expecting to have to like slow down and thought they could live in their 60s into their 90s and would not make any changes. So, to know that, more humans are going to create more problems, even as they will also inevitably create more solutions. And in that, you got a giant learning curve ahead of you as you figure out what it means to manage this gaggle while it is new and without a lot of clear direction. As it gets older, then the youngers will always have a more native and inherent binding to normative or acceptable behaviors. There are going to be things you won't have to teach more than once or twice. But then there'll be other things that will matter, at that point. So you're always kind of raising the oldest ones first. The youngest will lose out on some things, but they'll be way ahead on other things. And so that is part of it. Understanding that demand for your time is limited, that you will not be able to give an hour a day to every single person in the way that you want and they want, while also keeping everything else going. Most people aren't expecting that, but sometimes, we maybe do start to want to hold on to what we had when you had 2 of them, you could do more with each one than you can do when you have 5 of them. Mm-hmm. But that isn't an impoverishment. That's actually a glorification. It's an expansion, if you can see it. And it's an embryo. It's a baby. It's a seed right now. And so the other like major thing here is what we mentioned with our oldest daughter, who still, at 19, still lives in a room with her 4 other siblings, and it's a very large room. It's not a normal sized bedroom. We have a large family room, and that's their bedroom. And she has her space and her bed, and she could have her own apartment. She could be out on her own, but it's kind of nice for her to get the confidence to know that this season that she's been in doesn't have to be over just yet. But she's looking at it as it isn't going to be here like this forever. And that's where you're at. Like, this is a season. And what's it like in the spring when you first till the ground and start putting the seed in? What's it like when it starts popping up and you've got to go handle the pigs and the cows and the goats and all this other stuff because now they're calving over here and all this, right? So like it starts to pick up speed, and sometimes you have to put some things down. You have to say no to things that you used to say yes to. In that, love people, not things. Worship your God, not the stuff. And then see that in the whirlwind of the season, the things that matter are going to be blessed. Continue giving in that space, and let the rest of it pass by, because you're often trying to hold on to things that are not worth holding on to. Now, that said, I think that the reason we do this show, the reason I would like this show to be like world famous, isn't because I want to be world famous. It's because I really think that parenting, while hard, isn't as hard as impossible. But it does get more impossible the less you know what you're doing. And when I say know what you're doing, I don't mean like say you know what you're doing, because there's a lot of people who say they know what they're doing and then they tell you to do what they say they know to do, and it's just all wrong. It's not just wrong. It's so wrong, like it's going to just blow up in your face. And by the time it's 5 or 7 of them blowing up in your face, now you're really in trouble. And so things like boundaries, is a place to start. But I think the language that you used recently, Meridith, is very helpful. And we didn't make this up, but seeing the difference between a child-centered home, a woman-centered home, a man-centered home under God, right? So you can try to have a woman-centered home under Christ if you like, but I'll contend it will not have the same peace as the man-centered home under Christ. Mm-hmm. So because the woman-centered home under Christ is supposed to be under the man. And so, learning to parent the children, I'm not saying you haven't tried or you don't know, right? Or that you haven't listened to us. But what I am saying is that when you find yourself in that space where you're like, how do people do it? Well, a lot of times there's actually like 2 or 3 pretty simple answers that might solve some of your problem. That said, a lot of the times those answers are the very things that people that I talk to are like, yeah, that I would never do that. It's like, well, okay, well then you're gonna continue having what you have, right? So I don't know. I mean, having 5 kids under 6 years old or under 7 years old, you're gonna have a whirlwind going on. It's gonna be a whirlwind no matter what. And I say again, embrace the season for what it is and kind of make a game out of it if you can. It's gonna be over. You're gonna miss it. You're gonna want those little fingers and faces back so you can squeeze them the way you used to pinch the cheek or whatever, right? And so, but. Well, and I'll let you kind of go from here, Meridith, because you probably just offhand will have more in mind. But child-centered, if you're child-centered parenting with 1 child, you're going to have trouble. If you're child-centered parenting with 5 children, that thing's going to blow up. Yeah. And if you have a woman-centered home, then that has a longer fuse on the time bomb, I think. Right. But by the time that pack has pressed the male out, of the space, that can create a lot of challenge for the kids too, just to even understand why why the dynamic in the home is the way it is. If the answer to a lot of your problems, my children are talking back to me, is you're talking back to your husband. They're going to do what you do. Right? So that's what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I'm not saying that's what we're doing. I'm saying, those kinds of things are very, very helpful in going long distances when you can find out, that is what this issue is at the moment, right? That I want to model for my kids up what I want them to be for me. And, again, just one example. And I'm going to let you go and I'm going to get some water.
I remember being in that phase of life where I dreamed of the day that I could keep my shirt down all day. Just because it felt like
you're referring to feeding
I was
people,
nursing, right? And yep. And then, pregnant, and you have little people wanting to peek at baby as baby's growing, and so you feel like you're just so exposed. But I also remember how I was in a health-wise, I was not doing well either. I wasn't getting the nourishment that my body actually needed to support all of the life that I was given to support. Yeah. And so I remember holding our 5th child at one point and I was nursing her, and I was praying, Jesus, I feel like I'm dying. Not like, oh, this hurts so much, but it was like, I don't know how much longer I can continue on. I feel like I'm losing myself. Not as in this, this woo-woo, self-help, do time for yourself, that type of self. Or like, I don't know who I am. It wasn't that. It was, I feel like my time is limited because I just am giving so much and I'm not able to nurture what my body needs to keep going. Right. And then lo and behold, we actually
discovered we were poisoning you.
Well, right. We discovered just how malnourished I was.
Yeah.
And so one really basic, easy answer is let's look at our diet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because Frisbee actually mentioned that as she was giving us these questions today. She's like, yeah, I wonder about diet and medicine and not medicine, vitamins and whether or not she's getting enough of that.
Mm-hmm.
But in my case, I was eating the typical American woman diet. So not the sad diet where you're loading up on sugars, but like, I don't know, the South Beach diet where you eat salad all the time, and hardly any grains because you wouldn't want to eat too many carbs, so I basically wasn't getting anything. And then what am I giving to my babies as I'm growing them inside my womb, as I'm feeding them from my breast? I'm giving them fat and protein, not chicken protein, not pork protein. That's those animals. Well, they just are bad. Like I wanted to say, that's crappy meat.
They're not bad.
Okay.
They are, but they certainly are not as nutritious. They're not going to give you the high quality vitamins and dense proteins that you're going to get in a ruminant animal.
Yeah, you're going to get filler proteins, but you're not getting the proteins that you can actually build your body and somebody else's body out of over a long term.
Over a lifetime.
Yeah, like my fertile years, I want to make more babies. And we saw that in my body. It was like, no, I can't support any more humans.
Yeah.
And so I guess one of my encouragements to you, Belle, is to look at your diet. Make sure you're getting the good beef. You know how you crave that hamburger? Well, maybe take the bread off, but make sure you're getting that steak. And if you want a steak, have it.
Yes, by all means.
You really need the iron. You really need the protein. And may Jesus bless you with many more babies.
It's just kind of amazing if you were to do this magical experiment where you were to like cut through your arm, so you could like see the inside of your arm, and then you were to like go to the counter and like have every type of food, like as it could be eaten whole though, right laid out. You'd see there are certain foods that are in fact what's inside your arm. Yeah. They would be
like,
red meat
looks like my arm
with fat.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that like when you eat that, your body's like, oh, well, we'll put that right there. That's where that goes. If your body needs to do that anyway. And so if you're trying to do that with say like corn chips, you're going to eat a lot of corn chips. You're going to feel really bloated. You're going to have a lot of sugar your liver's got to deal with to get a little bit of protein to try to make your muscle out of corn chips. Okay. And you can know that at a certain point your bones are brittle, right? Your lymph nodes aren't going to send all the signals they need to. Like all sorts of stuff starts to happen because you just aren't giving it what it needs. So nutrition. What made me think of was sleep.
Yeah. And that was going to be the next kind of point that I was going to bring up. So go ahead and start us off. Well,
because I figure we might as well like kick the tiger in the face while we're at it. I tell you, if you got 5 kids and you're still doing family bed and you're feeling sick, okay, now's the time to realize that maybe it doesn't work with that many people. Maybe it doesn't work often with the first kid or the second kid. And how would I know this? Why would I say this? Because you're not getting enough sleep. That's why. So if you're doing family bed and saying to people, yeah, it's great, we're just not getting any sleep. Okay, well, that's not going to stop. Okay? Like it's not going to stop. So we didn't do that. We valued sleep. And I would contend that in parenting 5 children at once at any phase, being well rested is probably one of the most important things you can do. Well rested means 6+ hours of uninterrupted sleep a night. And I know when you have the infant, you're not going to be able to do that initially. You really can't do that initially, but you need to get back to that as soon as God will let you get there. You know?
Yeah.
And that is not That is not a mystery. That is not a magical reality. It is not an accident. It can be done, but it must be done on purpose. It will not happen accidentally, but it can be done on purpose. Again, with the family bed question, and I'm ready to feel the heat because I know it's just all the rage. But we didn't do it, and we are glad we did not. And as I see others do it, God bless you in your zeal and vigor, and may your love for your children and your desire to have them always feel comforted, indeed have them become secure people. But again, I just see a bunch of people too tired to do what they need to do. And what hurts me is to know it just doesn't have to be that way. And it gets back to child-centered too. Mm-hmm. It really is. I mean, family bed is child-centered parenting. There's just no way around the logic of it.
Yeah. So for us, one principle was I have the milk, and so I wake up and feed the babies. Jonathan didn't get up and feed our babies or take a turn or any of that type of thing, because you needed Jonathan to go to work the next day and function. And that was part of why having any interruption in our bedroom, any interruption in our space just wasn't a good idea, because how does the mortgage get paid? How does food get on the table? How do we put gas in our cars? How do we have cars? It's because of what you do from 8 to 5, 8 to midnight as a pastor,
right.
Whatever it is, in the next day. Mm-hmm. And so,
and the quality of it too, not that a pastor is trying to climb a ladder, although we often are, but if you're out there just in real world as well, it's not just about going to work and showing up. Right. It's about retaining your capacity to be a valuable person that builds and improves, and that the result of that is going to be good for the whole family as you, the breadwinner, and we do believe in this, that it is the man's duty to feed his children. It's not the mother's duty to take care of the children that the man put into her. It is his duty to do that. So as the breadwinner, by the way, women, if you make money, it's great. It's fine. But as the breadwinner, it is the man's duty to see this through.
So then after the healing period was over from labor and delivery, then baby slowly got further and further out of our room, started in a bassinet next to me, but then a week later, 3 weeks later, was in the bathroom or in the bedroom next door or what have you. But so that was one of the things. But the other thing that is just so amazing, it's like this magical baby sleep equation, is to train them to soothe themselves. So baby's been inside hearing your heartbeat for 9 months. Labor and delivery is a pretty traumatic experience. Not only hearing your heartbeat, but smelling your smell.
Everything. Everything. Change.
The both of you heal better from the labor and delivery if you are in close proximity to one another. And so therefore bassinet is put by the bed, not in the bed, but by the bed. And so then after the healing process is over, though, at 8 weeks, baby has the potential, as long as he is growing at the expected rate. We all will have, the unexpected can happen. I don't want to say that this,
it's not a promise written in stone.
Right. All normally growing babies have the potential and the capability of sleeping for 5 hours uninterrupted while the sun is down. So that would be considered sleeping through the night.
Yep.
So how do you achieve that, and how do you train them to get there? From the moment that they're born, you establish a sleep, eat, play pattern.
Yeah, so, threefold routine.
So they're falling asleep after they've been played with, rather than falling asleep after they eat. Why? Why is this so important?
Because it's magic and it works. So just do it. Don't question it. Change your life. I promise you'll sleep again.
So the pattern we're going for is sleep, eat when you wake up, play, and then go back to sleep. While the baby is well rested, he will then be able to stay awake long enough to get all of the very rich nutrient milk that's called the hind milk.
Yeah.
So that will actually help him to stay full longer so that you can go longer between feedings. It also helps him to grow, because it's got all the nutrients that he needs.
Right. So can I talk about that? So like, when the baby begins to eat at the woman's breast, the initial food is like Lucky Charms. It's like, oh my goodness, this is so good. This is the sugar I've been waiting for. And then once he chows down on that, and there's just fat in there too. I mean, his mother's milk. Don't get me wrong, but it's like the sweet. And once he gets past that, now it's protein time. It's kind of like, okay, this is gonna feel good too. But that one is more work, in fact, for the baby to get. And the time that it takes, I don't know this number, but it ain't 2 minutes.
It's 20 minutes per side.
Yeah. For the full, right? So, it's not 2 minutes that the hind comes in. It's more like 7 or 9 or somewhere in there, right?
Something like that.
And so, if your baby is tired and you feed your baby is a human man. He will eat the sugar and fall asleep like everybody does on Sunday. Okay, everybody does it in front of the football game. Okay, it's like it's the same thing. And the problem is then you're setting this kid up to not get the protein, and then the kid's gonna wake up and be hungry because the glucose cycle has started, where it's up down, up down. Okay, you're starting this problem that's obesity later. Okay, but the glucose cycle. He wakes up. I want more food. He's too tired to really be awake. He just needs a little bit of snack on. No more hind milk, right? And then next thing you know, you're in this pattern where they're just eating at the ran all the time, and it's whenever they're supposed to, and you've been told you're supposed to give it to them because they demand it, and all they really want from you is for you to say no. Like deep down in their heart, like, Mom, just say no once, please, so I can have security in my life. That's actually what they're looking for on some level. Give me a boundary. Give me a reason. And what the other side of this does then is the kid wakes up, and you feed them right away when they wake up. They're absolutely hungry. Aren't you hungry when you wake up? I'm hungry when I wake up. They're absolutely hungry. And then you just play with them till they crash.
Or it's a newborn and you change their diaper.
And then they crash.
That's considered playtime.
Yeah, that's enough.
Change their diaper, take their sleeper on and off, and then you rock them a little bit, sing them a little song, and lie them down and let them squawk or
you were very
very
particular about this though, where you would spend time like, I'm going to keep their brain engaged. You'd be like, she's only been up for like 45 minutes and she ate, but like, so I just want to really try to keep her up for another half an hour. And you would just sit there, and it wasn't like you were like screaming in the kid's face, but exactly what you're saying. You'd move her around, you coochie coo, and try to just kind of engage until they actually fall asleep. And then they're back in that sleep. But you also were excellent about now, at a certain point, after all that engagement, if I can see that the child's falling asleep, I'm going to put the child down before the child falls asleep and let the child fall asleep, because then the child learns how to self-comfort, which is, I'll just go on record and say it's hard to learn as an adult how to self-comfort. It's really tough. It's a lot easier if someone just lets you do it the first couple of years of your life, by gently creating distance between you.
And what does that look like? Because a lot of people get really upset about this idea. They're like, oh my goodness, I'm supposed to put my baby in the crib and let them just cry themselves to sleep. No. You sing their song or whatever your routine is. When that's done, you lie them down. You do whatever your routine is after you lie them down.
Do a routine though.
But it has to be a routine. Yes. Predictability and schedules and routines are just so comforting to humans. And then you walk out of the room, whether baby's eyes are open or not. And then if they start to cry, you give them a few minutes, let them cry. See if they're going to just cry and then fall asleep. Because why does baby cry?
That's important.
When we're stimulated, when we have an overstimulated brain, which an infant's brain does get overstimulated very easily, they have to let the adrenaline rush calm down. And I don't know about you, but that's actually still how I calm down from being adrenalized. If I have a heated discussion with one of my children, sometimes afterwards, like my heart's pumping and I've gotten nervous or frustrated, when I'm done, I actually might cry just to get back down to a stable level.
I love that babies just do this. Like we all would be better off if like after the long day, we just kind of went in the garage and just went "Aah!" for like 5 minutes, just like shouted, "Aah!" you know, they're meditating. If you can think of it that way, that the baby, if you have, this is one of the things that bothers me about child-centered parenting. If you think your job is to keep that baby from crying, you're not only going to have a very, very, very hard time of it, you're going to harm the child. The child needs to be able to cry.
Yeah.
It's part of thinking as a baby. I know you would like them to think in words. They're not there yet. And so at a certain point, after a lot of experience, or just I'm tired, I don't know what's going on. Tired is weird. It feels weird. I'm starting to think about tired. I don't know what to feel anymore. Out it comes, right?
Yeah.
They're just, so they need some of that. There's a difference in crying between, you know, I'm not happy. I'm kind of hurt and annoyed. I'm hurt.
Yeah.
Okay? That one, you know, usually pretty quick. There's also I'm angry. With that one, you got to let them have it and then calm them down, let them have it. But there's a scale where you can just tell, okay, the kid's kind of working through. Oh, he's scared now. Okay. Well, when your kid's scared, you go help your kid.
Yeah.
Right?
So, I mean, you can let them kind of for like 2 to 5 minutes, and then you go back in and you don't pick them up. You just put your hand on them and shush. So they hear your voice. You can sing their song again, and then you walk back out.
Now, let reader be warned. Like, you're starting this at age 3. The kid already manipulates you and you don't know it. And this is going to be an issue of, you know, now you're not going to know why they're crying. Because they know that if they cry long enough, they win. It's a tough one to deprogram. You know, slow and steady. A lot of grace. But
so if
sleep. This is all me saying, like, if you're trying to raise 5 kids and you're still not getting sleep for 6 hours a night, that's going to impact your capacity.
Yeah.
And I understand the sentiment behind child-centered parenting. I know everyone wants their kids to be great. I want mine to be great too. But like a lot of times, Gnosticism is ideas that sound amazing and just are not. They're not really good ideas. And you know because you watch. And so here we are, you know, trust us or not, we've done this for a while and we've watched. And I just, I'm pretty confident that 10 people in a king-size bed ain't happening. It ain't happening. And I don't want to hurt anybody or call friends out, but I remember one of my friends saying, you know, I just started sleeping on the floor.
Ooh.
And it was like, I mean, I've gone through floor sleeping periods in life, and it can help the back and also, and I, you know, with apnea, I wake up at night and sometimes it's like, I don't even want to get back in bed, but I'm still tired. I'll sleep on the floor. So like, there's a million, but like, if the point of family bed is family bed and then the father's on the floor, this stuff just, to me, that's the symbol that tells you the whole thing right there. That's the whole thing, America. You know, listen to it.
Yeah.
Listen to it. It's the father's bed. It's not the couple's bed. It's the father's bed. Mm-hmm. And if the father wants to have a kid in the bed, okay. You know, again, don't let me tell you how to live your house. But the father who's got to get up and work at 6 every morning, he's not going to want 3 kids in bed the rest of his life. It's just, it's not going to go well. And I think nature teaches you that if you think ahead, right? Oh, I'm going to have this kid. It's going to be just like this. We're going to have 7 of them. It's just like this. And you just don't even see these are their own people. Mm-hmm. They're not your little robots. And
right.
And they're going to start again. Someone on Twitter had this big kind of rage post about, you know, how can a 4-month-old be a sinner? And like, well, did they self-sacrifice much? You know, no.
Well, he's crying in the middle of the night. How inconsiderate.
Yeah. Well, they don't think about anyone but themselves. That's
right.
how they can be a sinner. What where I was going with it though. The incapacity to believe in your child, your 3-month-old, your 6-month-old, like you all think, not you all, but America, yes, America. I'm talking to America. So if you agree with me, you don't count, right? But like you're on my side. But like America, you all think those kids are so stupid, and those kids are so smart at like 2 months old. You just don't even know how much they're laying the framework for your own enslavement to their whims by the poor and foolish parenting decisions that you make with child-centered parenting, giving into them. They're the sinful nature of the human is not like, Chucky, I'm a baby, I'm gonna kill you. It's more like no, they just know how to get what they want by when it really matters if they have to hurt you. And they'll know how to do it in a way that you maybe didn't even realize was an old family dynamic that worked in your parents' home. And if you don't face those things again, if you don't begin to take address to those things, and you're not going to if you're too tired and malnourished to pay attention to what's going on. So these things build. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is not the end all be all the truth, but if you aren't taking care of your survival needs, then you're not going to be taking care of your intellectual needs. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. And then you were really good about at the beginning of this question talking about just kind of lowering expectations. Mm-hmm. I think that's key because when life gets busy, we need to not be looking at Pinterest and comparing ourselves, but looking at what's in front of us and making maybe subtle changes to create less expectation for ourselves. Homeschooling is a fantastic just continuation of what you've been doing with your children since day one. And yet at the same time, we oftentimes like to use it, at least I know mothers like to use it as a way of kind of proving their worth. Well, I have devotion every morning and then we do spelling and then we do, well, maybe for a season, homeschool looks like cleaning up the house together. Yeah,
at its best, it does.
Homeschool looks like going outside and taking walks.
It looks like what we were just talking about before, the ebb and flow of clean and dirty, right? Where this season and this quarter, we let this space get a little out of control because we're all working on these things. And then now we don't even need that space anymore. We're all done with that. We move on to some other thing. And that flexibility, oh man, I love that about life. The curiosity that is enabled in that. And then, oh man, how beautiful is it now when like the children are exploring things that you did explore or you had a hand in, but you never went as far as they're going already. Right. So it's almost like you did it, but then you didn't. And but you could have, and they did. And it's, homeschool really enables that. As opposed to the track experience that most schools are going to make kids go through because, it's supposed to get them into college.
For us, what has been the most rewarding is to teach our children to be lifelong learners.
Amen.
And that looks like a very basic curriculum of teaching them to read at first. And that's the focus, is reading and writing. And then you add in arithmetic, reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's like, oh, wow, huh? But if they can read, the concept is if a child can read, if a person can read, they can teach themselves anything.
That's right.
And so it doesn't have to be elaborate. And a lot of people get scared by the homeschool curriculum and all of the trying to imitate what they do in a brick and mortar school in your home and creating a school room and all this stuff. And it's like, it doesn't have to look that way. And honestly, for some people, that isn't the best way to learn.
Correct. And for many people, the classroom model is quite horrible, really.
Yeah. And for boys, it's like, don't even try until they're 12 with the classroom model. they aren't going to learn by sitting still. Their brains physically do not pick up information that way.
So teaching literacy, and this is something Dr. Kuntz and I in A Brief History of Power coming out next Thursday also touch on, is the subliterate reality of America, that memes and emojis and all the rest of it means that most people are not reading, which means that they really aren't thinking anymore. And so what we have forwarded is teach your children to read, teach your children to think. And that is what the classic education is supposed to do. The classic education model usually then involves, like, as you learn to read and think, you have to do it by reading all these things, or else the world will fall apart because it's indispensable, right? If you don't do it this way.
Right.
And so we have rejected a lot of that, although we certainly are for classical things, but the need to have, like, if we don't have this information memorized by this time, like that's not how reality works at all.
I really like what the classical model has mined for me. So they've gone and dug
Correct.
up all of the good resources, and then I can look at it and pick and choose. But this concept of, bummer, I just kind of like lost it. So
it's okay.
If you have something
the idea that that in the classical education curriculum world, they're working from resources that are built on a history that stood and can still stand. The idea that we must capture all of those resources now to stand again is where I think the folly is. It doesn't mean that those resources aren't from a time and a space where there was a more common sense world, where there was a worldview that was Christian and in order. And so to remember that world as we build the world we're in, I think is super valuable. In that, one of the greatest insights I ever had, that I don't think I thought it up, but I finally had it, and I should have thought of it sooner, and it's not fair to my daughters, but it really has worked wonderfully. And it's a certain age, so my boy is now, 12 now, and we're really hit, but like that giant book of a list of classical books that like somehow you're supposed to make them all go through with like you sit down and a classroom and you have a worksheet and a crossword puzzle for every single book, and you have questions. Okay, so I just like took page 1 and I said $50. It was done in 3 weeks. He read all those books. I said, okay, next time I need a note card with notes for every one of them. He said, okay. And next page was done in 2 weeks. I mean, kids read so much. He's just working on like a certain age bracket, but like still, like, what's the incentive?
Yeah.
Why do you think it's wrong? Why would it be wrong to pay your child to learn? Why is it wrong? Just ask yourself that question, because everyone was like, well, that would be wrong. Why would it be wrong? You're going to feed their greed. Okay, I'm going to stop his greed by like making him read books. Okay, no, that's not how greed works. I'm going to stop his greed by letting him have enough cash to waste it and get mad at himself and see what a fool he is for wanting stuff he doesn't need. He's learned that lesson a little bit here. But incentive. Why don't we pay our kids to go to school? Why don't we reward them for the work that they do? So starting to do that with, it's not a quarter a book, but it's a little more than that. That I found to be really valuable at the age where it makes sense to them, and they have to start keeping track of their money and stuff too. This isn't quite for the question we were asked, but
yeah, it's been interesting.
We have another question?
We do have one more question. It's kind of along the same lines though. So it is interesting to watch him go through that process, because at first what he purchased with the money was like, I don't know if you're familiar with
more boyish
Farmer
stuff.
Boy. Are you familiar with Farmer Boy?
Mm-hmm.
He raises things for the fair.
Mm-hmm.
And then with his earnings, his father's like, well, you can go and you can buy all the candy you want at, because he gets first prize and then you get reimbursed, or you sell your pig or what have you. And his father's like, yeah, you can go buy all the lemonades you want or all the cotton candy. Go for it, Almanzo. Or you could buy this, it's his pumpkin. He raises a pumpkin. Or you could buy this pig and raise it. And then this piglet, and then sell it, and you'll have even more money. Yeah. And it's been neat to watch Fides go through that, because at first, he was like, I'm going to go buy Legos. Well, then he tried to sell his Legos, and he found out how little he gets in return from his investment.
Yep.
So this last book list that he turned in, he went and bought himself a whole bunch of lumber.
Now, I want, it's pretty cool. I want the listener to get this though. So it's not just about how, incentive, money, my kid will read the books. Now I've got a class on household economics, financial management going on underneath my classical reading list, right? And he doesn't even know that, but I'm watching it with that in mind, and so are you, right? And so that to me, that's classical education. That's homeschooling. That's what really makes the difference, is that ability to tune it to the individual at their curve.
Exactly.
Right?
And that means boy, girl too.
Yes, absolutely.
The
They're
more
all
I'm
different.
learning about boy brain versus girl brain, like girls can do the let's sit in class every morning with our hands folded and listen quietly to the lecture and then take notes and regurgitate it after studying.
So you said, this is what we shall do.
But the boy is like, I'm sorry, I can't say the Lord's Prayer without marching around the room and then doing jumping jacks. And now I'm going to recite the ABCs while I'm climbing this fence pole. Like their bodies need to move and their brains won't work unless they do. Also, you can only give them one piece of information at a time. And so us wives might have gotten upset when we've given our husbands like a whole big old list of groceries that we need and they only bring back one thing. Well, it's because the man brain does definitely work on monotasking.
That's why when there's a question that's asked and I don't get to the end of the question before there's another question, I struggle, is because I can only think on the one thing at a time. Ernest says, my youngest son and wife are using Memorial Press, and that is indeed what we use a lot of the time as a resource. I use them as
a good model
because
I just can't afford them.
It's not the reading. Yeah, we don't buy everything from them. And the reading list, the reading list we're using, I'm not sure where we got that or how we could share that, but we get all the books from the library, by and large. But I want to say something about Memorial Press. I wasn't going to, but since he mentioned it, and they are out there, they are a really decent organization, but their most recent magazine.
Yeah, it was like a sub-magazine
that they send out to promote their books. It has like the chief flaw in it on parade. The chief flaw of classical ed, as I understand it, is on parade in that article. And it is where it calls the writings of the pagans indispensable to Christianity. And it literally uses the word indispensable. And to misunderstand how valuable the Bible is, that indeed we don't need a single one of these other things. We could do nothing but teach our kids to read the Bible every day and do nothing but that all day. And they would end up being tremendous people who would figure out stuff we probably couldn't even imagine. Add a little arithmetic. They probably figured it out on their own, but add the arithmetic. Why not, right? The point is that the scriptures have more in it than Plato does. We don't need the history of Plato to tell us where we are in time now. All we need is Fox News and Biden. And then we know, and Plato's not going to help us stop the immigration issue, right? Like that's, so it's not that the classics or that the world outside of the Christian church has never spoken a word of truth, or that the classical word and classical education system, philosophy, science, the traditions don't have value. But I suggest that if you believe it's indispensable, that's why God's tearing it down right now. And that was indispensable are the words of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
So Memorial Press is great. Keep using it, but just watch that thread, okay? Because that's a stinky, dirty thread, and you weave that into your coat's going to smell. So don't.
Look, Jonathan, Bell's listening.
Bell, praise God for you both. Hey, Bell, what's up? You're welcome.
And that was her question.
Hallelujah.
So yay.
So yeah, we're like past time, but we can do one more anyway.
Okay,
Here
so the other sister in Christ, I don't know how to pronounce her name, and neither did Frisbee. So it's CAEREA.
Carrie.
Oh, well, that's fun. Okay.
Caria.
Yeah. I don't know.
Carrie.
Well, Carrie has 2 babies under 2. That's just a little bit about herself. She, however, is writing in because she's concerned about her pastor's wife, who is a mother of 3 young children, and they're both a part of a mother's group where the pastor's wife has come and she's expressed feeling alone and overwhelmed. She struggles with being angry at her children and then guilt over her anger. The mother's group really wants to support her, and they currently offer play dates, and then they'll provide meals when it's needed. But they're not really sure what else to do. The pastor's wife also, like, this was interesting too. The pastor's wife is unsure of what she would benefit from. So like when they ask her, she's like, I don't know how I need help. So they're asking, or Carrie is asking for suggestions and saying, the whole group is just saying to one another, this is really hard to see our pastor's wife struggling so much. She's a wonderful lady. We love her dearly, and yet we just don't know how to help.
Yeah. Where's he? I mean, is he involved in the conversation? I would get him involved in the conversation right away. And I hesitate to say more until that, because their family's the issue. That's what has to be dealt with. It doesn't mean it's his fault or that they can't continue to serve in the ministry, but it's an internal issue in their home that he's a part of, and it's their issue to solve together.
Right.
Playdates ain't going to do it. Right. Just like going out to smoke cigars on the porch won't make the conversation be nicer when you come back inside. It's going to be the same conversation. Right. You might need that time to get away. Don't get me wrong, but it's not going to solve the problem if you don't come back in and solve the problem. So, there's a lot of reasons why a pastor's wife could be ridiculously overwhelmed at such a time as this. And there's lots of reasons why everybody could be. History, context, social dynamics, family, legacy, expectations of ministry, previous calls. And then you throw in, the kids part, feeling alone, feeling angry at the kids. Okay.
It sounds to me like the kids don't have a lot of boundaries. Like if you're just
that's probably
getting
true.
Overwhelmed by your
That's probably
children.
True. But feeling alone and angry at the kids, to me, again, that means alone. Like the anger at the kids is because you're alone with the kids rather than where's he. And I know that he's working hard because he's a pastor in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, and we teach men to be career slaves and to sacrifice their families on the altar of ministry, even though 1 Timothy 3 says, if you can't take care of your family, what are you doing in the church? So that issue for you all with them is one, not to go at them like 1 Timothy 3 says this. It's like, no, look, like your pastor's like hurting right now. This tells you your pastor's hurting, I'd say.
Yeah, that's good.
And that doesn't mean he's bad, but you want to help them know you're here and want them to keep doing the job they're doing, which means that they need to know on some level, you need to know as a congregation on some level what their threat is.
Yeah.
So that you can help alleviate that threat. And that could be any number of other things. What is he afraid of that's driving him? Now, I'll tell you as a pastor, what I'm afraid of is losing people. Why? Because I know what happens in our church body with everybody else if you do. I know who they think's at fault. I know it doesn't matter what else happened. I know who gets the blame. And if it happens too much to you as one pastor, I know that your meal ticket's on the line. So you think about that a lot as a pastor, especially with young kids in the family, out of seminary or off, 10 years in and still trying to find that place where it works. Or you're doing it and it works great, but they don't pay you, really. And so you're having to hold ends together or figure out, the number of pressures. And that's before you get the emergency call at the middle of the night to go check on the person and you just fell asleep because family bed isn't working that well, right? It just adds up after a while, right? So she and he are part of the same coin, and your congregation is going to go as they go. There's a good chance even that what they have happening in their family is a reflection of some of the sins of the congregation extended. I'm not saying directly. I'm saying, though, like they're interconnected. And when you begin to minister to each other, you'll find that the sins that are being dealt with, repented of, saved from, healed through, they are reciprocal, and that there are others who are also going to benefit from those conversations when we're willing to have them. So since you're already having this conversation openly with her, the next thing is to openly say with her, how is the conversation with Pastor going on these things? How can we support him in supporting you? If you're feeling alone, does he feel alone? My guess is he does. He doesn't not feel alone. He's not like out doing things because he feels filled up and has plenty of time with his wife. He probably isn't thinking that at all. He's more concerned about, the life of the church and the people who are talking to him and saying, Pastor, we need more of this. And if we did this, then the church would work. And he's living in that world. And she's like feeling neglected, probably.
Yeah.
And so, again, I'm reading a lot into a little question. I don't know any of you, but I do know that the church is built to handle such things, but it won't be by ignoring the whole picture. So you're not going to solve a member of a marriage's problem without the other person in the marriage present. It won't happen. You can individually go and do work on yourself. So you return to a marriage that is not the one that you would like it to be, but it's better than it was because you've improved who you are. It's possible for an individual to do that. And maybe you can be a friend to somebody and help them through that. That said, it won't be by counseling them about all the conversations they had with that other person, right? You're not going to dwell on the person that's challenging them in their home. You're going to talk about the thing they can do to change their person where they are, right? All the time. That said, again, if you really want the marriage to grow, the two together have to confront the thing that is dividing, the thing that is driving apart. And if you're alone and angry, why?
Yeah.
If you don't answer it, it's not going away.
One of my thoughts was, how unfortunately social media makes us feel like
Absolutely.
We're going into a community, but it never leaves us feeling like we have a community.
Right.
And sometimes pastors' wives will get kind of sucked into different groups, and so they do end up spending a lot of time in those groups. And also, it's a blessing to be able to get together as women, but Scripture is constantly warning us that we need to watch our tongues and watch how we speak to one another and about one another, which means we're probably going to talk about our husbands. So how are we talking about our family? How are we talking about our kids? And unfortunately, the statistics show that the more we vent, the more that we express our displeasure in other people, the more we actually feel that displeasure.
Right. So
openly sharing can lead us into places that aren't as helpful as maybe we thought they would be.
Complaining doesn't make it better. I got one caveat to that I believe firmly now and have learned recently. The one place that it's okay to vent is to Jesus and in his name. But that would be something you generally would do not in front of others. And it would be at that moment where you're angry and you say, Jesus. And now you vent at Jesus. And the funny thing is, like, you won't really vent. You'll actually pray. Like, it'll start as a vent. It'll turn into a prayer. And so, letting your anger go to Christ is good. Complaining to others and saying that this is your release valve, right? That's not good. That's gonna come back as more envy. Going to Christ with your anger is actually not envy. It's the opposite of it. It's admission of rebellion, admission of creaturely fallenness, but it's kind of an acceptance. It's like, I can't change it. I'm kind of accepting it. I'm just not happy. I'm not happy, but I'll accept it. Why you always do this, God? And so, Jesus, why? No, I love you. Why? That's okay. That's good. It's a really valuable thing to be able to do. saying that to your girlfriends, again, it's going to come back and it's just going to poison the well. There's a big difference.
Yeah, it is. It's so hard. Women are verbal processors. Let's see, how do you say that in a more biblical way? As if we're not computers.
Well, was it tailbearer?
We, we think our thoughts out loud oftentimes. And so to have somebody to bounce our ideas and emotions off of can seem very important to us. And it just sounds like, I don't know, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I'm just a little like concerned that this pastor's wife is even being so needy.
Well, that's kind of why
You
I
know?
say, you really want to get your pastor involved in this pretty quick, because it sounds like she's in a tough spot. And that means if he doesn't know, then the marriage is going to be in a tough spot real fast. If he does know, well, then good. Now you can all work together on this, right? And if she's going to the ladies of the congregation because she is not feeling supported, it's not as though the congregation isn't there to help everyone, but there's a good chance then that he is not feeling supported. And when this falls apart, it's not going to be just like some members left.
Mm-hmm.
It leaves tracks, right? And again, it doesn't have to. I don't know. You have to ask him.
Right.
And but the fact that she's coming and asking and saying this is a real big red flag. Like, someone needs to talk to them about this, right? So, you and I have gone through pretty hard 3 years so far as 2020 woke us up to a million different things. I definitely have gone through, can we say, a midlife crisis. You found days and times where, what you expected and planned for the day wasn't, because we had to deal with our relationship. We had to work things out and kind of recenter ourselves under God in the world we woke up in.
Mm-hmm.
I had a point I wanted to get to close with that, and I lost it. So now my turn to lose it. It's only 10 o'clock on Friday night.
You can think about it for a second. There was something that I was reading about this week that has just been on my mind and fascinated me. Mm-hmm. And it kind of makes me think, I guess I just want to go to the Daughters of Wisdom prayers more regularly, or fill myself up with God's word more, and this is the idea. So some researchers had this sheet of paper with like 20 lines on it, and each line has a jumble of 5 words. The assignment is to take the jumble of words and create a 3-word sentence. In each line that has a jumble of words, one of those words is positive. So it says patiently, or quietly, or kindly, or just kind. It doesn't have to be an adjective. Anyway, the research showed that if that page truly did have lines with positive throwaway words, the person taking this test, or the what do you call that? What would that be? The person who they're testing.
Yeah, experiment.
Experiment.
The guinea pig.
Okay, the guinea pig would then walk away and reflect that emotion. So positivity. Now, if the page had filler words that were angry or aggressive, likewise, the guinea pig would walk away and treat others with aggression, mm-hmm. Or anger. Mm-hmm. And so my point is, like, what we see, even though they weren't focused on those words, it was just a throwaway word in the group of words they were working with. what we see, we subconsciously are impacted by
Absolutely.
more than we realize.
Yep.
So she's talking about how angry she gets at her children. Well, what novels is she reading? And what scripture isn't she reading?
Facebook.
How often are we looking at X?
Yeah.
And are these stories happy? Or are these stories full of fear? And then it's hard to walk away from all of that and have a completely opposite emotion towards the people that we love the most.
Yeah.
So one author that I have gone back to over the course of our 22 years of marriage is Nancy Wilson, and she writes a book called The Fruit of Her Hands. As a Lutheran, I appreciate what she has to say if I read it knowing that scripture is true. Mm-hmm. And wanting to take scripture at face value.
Right.
Okay. So she encourages women to read 9 to 10 chapters of scripture a day. Now, I am not, that's like the Horner method. So go ahead and do the Horner method. That's fabulous. I love it. But I don't succeed at that. But anyway, her point is, dump it on yourself and you will see the results. And this scientific experiment proves she's right. And so my thinking is that this pastor's wife just she's not in the Psalter.
She is alone. She feels alone because she's alone. And the solution is to surround her.
Right.
Her husband is probably also alone and they feel alone, and so surround them. And then from there, again, what habits does a person have that are if you're scrolling Facebook and you're feeling depressed, they go together, right? But how many people are willing to let the answer that will solve their problem be the answer they'll believe? And so that's the other side of a lot of this, and whether it's parenting or whether it's, I don't know, business management. So Gnosticism likes to ruin everything by sounding good. It sounds like it makes sense. It sounds like it'll be okay. Yeah. And you try to do it, and it's not so much. Rhett took off. He's probably gone already, but he said, nice to hang with y'all tonight. Moved to Milwaukee, so I might be driving down to Hebron. I hope so, Rhett. You come visit us sometime. Yay. Let me know through the HebronCollegium.com, .org website. Reach out and contact there before you come. That way we know you're coming. I wish I could remember what I was building toward because I felt like it was sort of.
Yeah, it did sound so good. And
do you remember it all with the pre?
Well, you were talking about how it's been a little bit of a tricky 3 years for us.
Yeah, this was it. Like, some of it's just a wisdom thing. Like just knowing, and we've been down it long enough that we've learned. If we lean on the laity, we break the laity. Like we're not here to lean on them.
No.
We must develop our own support systems. Laity can bring us support. They often want to, but we can't lean on you the same way. And so that she is asking to is, again, just a real sign of turmoil and trouble. And that, so you and I have had ups and downs. Nothing be better for us than a nice 6-month sabbatical. But like, that hasn't been, like, you haven't had to go outside the marriage and say, I need help. I haven't had to go outside the marriage and say, I need help. And so that happening alone is a really important sign for the congregation to reckon with. And I say at that level, it's almost like an elder's matter too.
Yeah. I was curious if maybe Carrie would just take her observations to her father, to her husband.
Absolutely.
And he, being a man, might just have an ear to the ground in a totally different way.
That's right.
Or he then will notice things that before he was like, I didn't notice. Right. The other thought I had is when things get rocky, if I receive a letter from somebody that just says, you know what? I think you are a beautiful creation in this world, and I thank God for you. And then has a scripture verse that was handpicked for me, knowing that I had a rough week, or that, we're going through a scary thing with our kids, or whatever it is. I don't even know. I'm trying to come up with examples. But some handpicked scripture verse that's geared just towards me, between me and my sister in Christ. That means so much to me. And then the other thing that a friend of mine here in the Midwest does, and she's a blessing. I just love her. She has not been a parishioner of ours ever, but we've run in similar circles, so I've gotten to know her. And she said, I make meals for my pastor and his family during holiday weeks, so Christmas week and Holy Week, because it's just a lot to be a pastor during those times. And amen, sister, it totally is for our pastors. Like, they're working so much. And the joke is always that, like, oh yeah, pastor works only 1 day a week. Well, it's not just like, oh, well, now he has to work 4 days a week. It's like he has to work 4 weeks into 1 week. That's what that looks like. So yeah, it's a huge blessing to have somebody just notice, even drop off a bouquet of flowers. Hey, I thought this might brighten up your Easter table.
And I if I say this, I'm afraid the person who did it's gonna feel bad and do it again. So you don't, okay? But nothing made me happier than one day someone showed up and handed me 4 cigars. I was just like, really? They were nice ones too, and I was just like, really? You did. You listened. You cared. And, that kind of thing, it wasn't so much to get your pastor cigars. Yeah. No. You listen enough. I don't talk about cigars all the time, but you listen enough to know if you gave me some, I'd be happy. And that kind of thing. Again, I don't think this is going to solve her.
No, but we can't. So that's the problem that we as women, I know men have their own fix-it, Mr. Fix-It. But I find a lot of my Christian sisters seeing hurting people and then taking on their burden in a way that's just not really ours to take on.
Right.
And so going over and cleaning her house for her isn't really your burden to take on. And honestly, cooking them meals isn't your burden to take on. It sounds like she wants a friend. Really. Yeah. She just needs to be able to know, I can say things here, and you're not going to then use it against me.
Yeah. That's right. And that's where, as you handle this, is important, because it needs to not become an attack the congregation makes on the family. Right. And it could be seen that way very easily, especially if he's entrenched in some way, in some other battle that you don't even know about. Darth Mick says, one time my dad had 3 funerals during Holy Week.
Oh, Christ have mercy.
It's quite a lot there.
Holy Week is kind of laden with that kind of stuff often.
It often does have events that happen. I want to share how for my part, Holy Week is so busy, it is so full, and it is a blessing in that, in one sense, I go on vacation. And it's not really true at all, because I still have to have everything ready for Sunday, and it's Easter. So nothing slows down even a little bit. It gets bigger all week. But as a result, the guy who is always kind of trying to do more just has a little easier time not. And so instead, I just everything's ready that can be. I'll get done what needs to be done in time. And I walk through the week, and it's usually one of the easiest weeks of, not because I do less, but because I'm not trying to do more.
Right. You're hey, little antagonist voice in the back of my head, we're done. We're done for now. Okay.
So that there's a beauty in that, though. I kind of like it. It's like you take the kids to higher things, and you're telling the parents, yeah, we're gonna go to church 4 times a day, and the kids are like, what? Yeah. And you get there and you do it, and you're like, oh, that was kind of relaxing. Yeah. That was chill. I like that. And so Holy Week's a lot like that. But it's a great deal of effort. So right now, your pastor's family always does need support. during all times, but the busy times, particularly Christmas and Easter.
If nothing else, just don't ask them to do more.
Extra stuff. That's right. That's right.
You don't have to invite them over for your meal.
That might be asking him to do more, actually.
Yeah,
it
it's
sort
true.
of is. One other thought on this that I think matters more now than it used to. It probably always mattered, but back once upon a time, there was a more normative expectation of human behavior, and so you didn't have to think about it. But now it is true. Okay, so kind of shifting the direction, but it's the same direction, not the same question, but for everybody out there listening, when you call a pastor, you're calling his wife too. And again, there might have been a time when they all kind of looked like 80-20 the same. Like Missouri Synod pastors' wives, cut from the same material. Not.
Oh, I totally thought you were talking about on the telephone.
No.
Okay, we're talking about extending the
I'm
divine
talking about
call.
extending a divine call to a
Okay.
pastor. When you extend a divine call to a pastor, you are not just getting the pastor, you're getting his wife and his family too.
Yeah.
And that will, and where once that might have been generally the same result. We got 3 pastors, we interviewed them all, we like this guy more. They're all going to kind of be the same, though. And the wives are all going to kind of be the same. That's just not true now. And now you can't even tell what the wife's going to be from the guy. You don't even know.
Right.
Like he might show up like, yes, I love the Lutheran confessions. I would never betray them. Have you met my wife, the Catholic? And you end up in this like scenario,
Yeah.
right? Or have you met my wife who just refuses to go to your church because she doesn't like the way you worship, right? Like that. That's something to take in mind as a calling congregation, as members. You're calling a pastor and his family into the ministry, and that means supporting them when they get there, but it also means buyer beware now. Look before you call. This is the advice I'm trying to give.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't want this to in any way be connected to the direct conversation we were just having, but because I've heard of enough other stories where the wife's actual behavior destroyed things, got out of control without destroying the marriage. Just her behavior that was just not unchecked. It was just unchecked because he wouldn't. And how would you know? How would you know? Right. That's kind of the thing. So, just see how complex the reality is. And of course, when someone comes to you expressing that much pain, then there definitely is something going on. It's not always what they are aware of themselves, but it means that the Christian community is, it's what we're here for, is to find those Christians and help them repent and build. And it doesn't always mean repentance, but we don't have to make repentance such a big deal. It can be a simple thing as well. Yeah, right. So Jesse says, we had a pastor at a previous church who told us ahead of time his wife was not a pastor's wife. She had her own career. Well, yeah. So it's important this too. I mean, it is not the pastor's wife's job to save your VBS. It really isn't her job to just come in and fix all that stuff. But the thing is, like I've said this before and it can be misunderstood, but if we can rewind our understanding of humanity to before 1940s TV convinced us we were all middle class, what you find is layers of elite realities leading down to a more common base. And in that space of human relationships, the local guru, holy man, whatever you want to call him, priest, okay, that guy is like the local one, not the high priest, but the local priest, not the bishop, but the local priest. He is the first level of elite caste in any civilization above commoner.
Yeah, he's like the go-between.
He's the lowest level of nobility. He's the lowest royal, okay? Which, when your pastor puts on his chasuble as a vestment to show he comes in the name of the king, like, hey, like the pagans know this from nature. Don't we know this better? But what that means then is that the pastor's family is royalty within the congregation. I mean, goodness, you all pay him. You just give him money and they live on it. That's like the definition of royalty. It's not like he doesn't do anything. He does a whole bunch of stuff, but it's not really his job. He doesn't have a paycheck. He's called and you give him offerings. Okay? Like, so to see then that you can't be like, well, I'm going to be prince, but my wife won't be princess. She doesn't do that. She likes cows. You know, well, she can like cows as princess. She's still princess. And if princess never shows up to talk to the common people, guess what the common people do? They kill princess eventually. They say princess has cake. We want to eat it. Right. That's I'm talking, you know, the big picture of all that. But like, so then understand that you as a pastor's wife, your pastor and his wife, they function the way royalty does in the congregation. And the primary function of royalty is to model good behavior. It's the primary thing the noble does, is they look clean and intelligent and they talk and make sense. That's the goal. And then everyone else will reflect that and have a little bit of that. So again, if your pastor's wife is like, yeah, I don't care. Well, that will have an impact over 13, 15 years.
Yeah.
It really will. Right. So, you know, buyer beware, take care of the ones you got. And thanks for being with us here tonight at Stop the White Noise.
Absolutely.
With Jonathan and Meridith. Meridith says, I am Meridith.
Oh.
I tried. I know. I messed it up.
My script.
I know.
I don't know. That's weird.
Meridith says, I am
Meridith.
And Jonathan says,
What?
You gotta say, I am.
I am.
Jonathan. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay, that was fun.
Yeah.
What's that from?
I don't know.
You just made that up?
I'm Jonathan, and well, normally it's like what? You found Stop the White Noise, Jonathan and Meridith. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Meridith.
See, like that. Yeah. Hey, if you like what we do, please do support us. It goes a long way. It is a reality that living as a single income family is hard. And so what you send us goes to what we do. All the stuffs, including the Hebron Calligraphy, Brief History of Power, Mad Christian Mondays, Sons of Solomon, the Preaching Online, all the rest of it, right? So thank you. Subscribestar.com/RevFisk is the place to go, or you can go to RevFisk.com and subscribe to the newsletter there. Make sure you sign up to pay for it. You'll get a free picture of a tree every day. And man, those trees are pretty. They really are.
How much time does it take to create one tree? I feel like you were talking about this the other day.
Oh, not much at all. Although currently I don't have access.
2 hours
No.
picture.
No. That's the problem with AI is it's too easy. It's too fast. I got so many trees. I don't even know what they all are. I'm like rediscovering them, but they're all in different imitations of styles. And so they bring about a certain diversity that I enjoy playing with. But okay, so if I am back in my software that I would use, different AI softwares are built differently, but they usually you're going to type in your prompts, you're going to write your code, and it's going to produce some number of results. The one I would use would just give you 2.
Oh, okay.
A lot of times they'll give you 4. So it would give you these 2 results, and then you have the capacity to sort of like vote for one that it would give you sort of like, this is what I was looking for more, and then you can remix it, or you can start again with the same computer having learned from the process. So it's always learning from itself as it goes. So, you know, what that means is it takes, 17 seconds to make 2 pictures, something like that. But to make the picture you want, so
without like the file folder in the middle of the
trees that I'm using. The trees that I'm using were part of me learning a number of art points and artists by asking the computer to do the same thing over and over again with a different, like I changed a variable to bring out different artists and kind of see, do I want to use this artist as part of my alchemy for my own stuff, or do I not like what this person does by themselves if I give them this prompt? And so that, I was doing that as a big project, and I have all these trees as a result of it, and they're all really cool and amazing. But then if I'm going after something like I want to get Earth sitting in his tent or whatever, I'll spend I haven't done this for a while, but it's like an hour, and you'll come out with, 45 images and you got one or two that it'll do. It's pretty cool even, but it's not quite what you planned. But man, it's beautiful. So like it's an interesting tool in that way. It's a little ham-fisted. It's getting better like by the week. Scarily better, actually. There's this video of Vladimir Putin. This isn't real. None of it's real. So because it's getting faked, like you can fake people doing stuff now.
Yeah.
Vladimir Putin's like teaching in a little kid's classroom about gender.
Oh dear.
He's like two. He's got this sticky shit on the board. He's like, there's one and there's two. One and there's two. He just hits them, over and over again.
Okay.
And then it goes and it's got this little kid desk and Biden is sitting at the desk looking really confused. And he looks down at his cheat card because Biden's got these cheat cards.
Oh dear.
And then like his cheat card's got like 36 genders on it, and he's like trying to figure it out. Like he's trying to understand it. And Putin's just like one.
Oh,
two,
Christ have mercy.
1, 2. Yeah. So the AI though, again, has the capacity. Deepfake is getting to a point where video, you really just don't know. I mean, is it real? Is it not real? Making AI art is it's easy and hard at once. And anyway, so that's where the trees come from. And the hardest part is learning to write the prompts for the tool, finding the right words to get the computer to understand what you're talking about, and then the words to get it to stylize as well. Yeah. It's very easy to go in and say, paint me a fantasy hero on a hill, and you're going to get this amazing picture that looks like, and it'll be right there, but it will have no soul. It will look like every other fantasy picture on a hill. What I think has been neat about my experimenting with this stuff is like my stuff doesn't look like anybody's stuff. It's not fake. It's not copying anything. So it's possible to really make art with this stuff, but it does take a certain knowledge. And I would suggest, why am I good at it? I watched too many movies. I read all the right books, and I am a writer by nature. So that, what AI is the potential to write pictures.
Yeah.
So yeah, I should be good at it. It'd be kind of sad if I wasn't, really, actually. So yeah, trees on MadPXM, redfist.com, and that's where you subscribe for that if you like us. You listened because we're talking about it. Yay for being here. That's how you would support us. And I think I promoted everything else for tonight. You're looking at me like it's just...
I'm just running through it all in my head.
In your head.
Thinking.
Yeah. All right. Well, get yourself to church this weekend. We will catch you on the other side. Jesus Christ has risen from the dead. That makes you pay for. That means you are immortal now, and he's not going to be long anyway. Don't wallow in the muck with those who have no hope, but lift up your head all the more as you see the day approaching. Rock on and hallelujah.
Was that worth $1? Click the Patreon link in the show notes to sign up. Pretty please?